This Tampa City Council meeting to order. If we could please, if you're able to, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Vieira.
Here.
Goose.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Dingfelder.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Shelby, before we go to public comment.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Today, Thursday, September 17th of 2020, is a virtual meeting of the City Council, which is being held in accordance with the declarations and provisions of the Governor's Executive Order 20-69 and 20-193, as they may be further extended, and the emergency rules of procedure as adopted and amended by the Tampa City Council. It's being conducted by audio teleconferencing only, video presentations, which is remote participation referred to by the state of Florida statutes and rules as communication media technology. The public and the citizens of the City of Tampa are able to watch and listen and view this meeting on cable TV on Spectrum and Frontier, and the internet at tampagov.net/livestream, or the city's Facebook page, facebook.com/City of Tampa FL. Now, since this meeting is being conducted with the use of communications media technology, the public is able to participate either the internet or web, submitting public comments by leaving a voicemail, by mail to the city clerk, or to speak remotely during the meeting if they don't have a computer or communications media technology, by appearing in person at the Tampa Convention Center. And those instructions are available to the public on the City Council's webpage at tampagov.net/city-council. Now, the written comments have been distributed to the council and will be made part of the record of this meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. With public comment, do we have anybody in person, live at the convention center?
No, sir, there's no one at the Tampa Convention Center.
And we have, do we have any recorded comments for public comment?
There are no recorded comments for this morning.
And do we have people that have registered to speak live?
I have 2 people registered to speak live. One has not shown up as of yet, and that's Zulima Ramos, but I have
Okay.
Chris Vila available to speak.
All right, if Mr. Vila's ready, I'll go ahead and start the clock. If you would unmute himself.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Council, good morning. This is Chris Vela, 33605 in Ybor City. I wanted to talk quickly about item number 52, which is the city acquisition of 1312 North Tampa Street. I was a little bit stunned that this piece of property was going to cost $5 million, being that it's only 0.6 acres. But then I realized that the city owns 2.4 acres behind it, giving it a total of 3 acres, which really would be, it's awesome for affordable housing. So one of the recommendations that I would make is to work with FDOT to remove the Ashley Drive southbound and northbound exits, as this will unlock triple the amount of space that you need and will restore the historic line of sight to see the river. So we will no longer see those ramps at all. And those are the oldest part of the interstate. And the traffic on there is very low, actually. It's under 4,000 cars going northbound and only 13,000 southbound. And we got numerous exits, as you're aware. So I think this is an opportunity to really expand on this and flatten Ashley so we have really good access. And so I would just suggest you guys work with staff very carefully to get a criteria list. And as things move forward, just keep in mind that any type of request for proposal should include maximization of affordable housing. And also, I would urge the developer, whoever that may be, to purchase, or to help fund the streetcar stop. So I think that's important. For item 54 for Kennedy, I would just, why don't we reduce the speed down to 30? It's actually the same traffic as Bayshore. There's a lot more stops and turns. And I would ask FDOT to do a wider sidewalk in Kennedy. No bicyclists would use this road that's painted. Good shade, and we also need pedestrian lighting. Go ahead and improve the bonus provision for item 48. And I just want to remind this council that there was an apology issued 2 weeks ago. We can't allow our protesters to be run down by vehicles, especially District 4. You know, it used to be primarily a very diverse community, and now it's primarily white. I don't think there's any understanding of what's going on. There was certain areas that were redlined, like Port Tampa. So let's just try to really, look at the situation from all angles. It's very embarrassing, shameful. District 4 needs to turn itself around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else that's on the line or registered for public comment?
No, sir, that concludes the public comment portion of the agenda.
That's great. Thank you very much. Before we get to the approval of the agenda and the addendum, I'd just like to wish Charlie Frago of the Tampa Bay Times, who is listening, a very happy birthday. So happy birthday, Charlie Frago. All right, approval of the agenda and addendum to the agenda. A couple things. If you notice that FDOT's presentation is at item 54, I'd like to move that to item number, right after item number 1, after the superintendent of schools speaks. And then what else did I have? And on any items under staff reports or anything else, do we need staff for all these items to be present? Are there any specifics? Any council members? I know Councilmember Dingfelder sent a memo out to pull one item for discussion. Do any other council members need staff to stay put until we get to them?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Right. I'm trying, the agenda shifted. I'm trying to figure out exactly where these items are.
Councilman Dingfelder, I believe it's item 43. If you could take a look at that one, I believe that's one that I believe you've requested. Could you just confirm if that's the right number?
hold on, thank you.
The list of transportation projects that you
Right.
submitted to.
Right, I'd like 43, be a staff report, and also,
What's his name?
a couple of big ticket items. Hold on. Item 49 is the $8 million contract, and item 50 is another $8 million contract.
So you want, I see a memo from Brad Baird. Do you want Brad Baird on the line or someone from his office to be available for questions at that time?
Yes, it looks like staff is already doing that because they asked to move it from consent to staff reports. Yes, I'd like somebody on the line on 49 and 50 as well as 43. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
All right. Any other
Chair,
council members?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman? Yes.
I didn't pull those items because Mr. Dingford had already sent those memos out for those big ticket items. But as long as Brad Baird is going to be here, he should be able to answer some questions for about 2 or 3 items that I have questions for. And hopefully, Mr. Hart probably will be with him as well because I've got some concerns about a couple items. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, also, sorry if you mentioned this already, but the staff asked that we move or continue item number 57.
Okay. So if we can get a motion to continue item 57?
So move.
Yeah, I can't find.
Do we have a date for that, Mr. Chairman? I believe they wanted 60 days. Is that correct?
I believe so. Councilman Carlson, do you have any questions on that? I know it was your original motion.
Yeah, I think 60 days would be great. Sorry, I can't quickly find the memo here, but I know it was somewhere around there. So 60 days would be good.
November 19th under staff reports?
Yeah, I was going to say November 19th. Would that be sufficient? That's roughly 60 days.
Great. Thank you. I move that we move item number 57 to November, what did you say? November
19th under staff reports.
19th under staff
Yes.
reports.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Carlson to move the item or continue item 57. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Goods, I believe. Is there any objection? All right, by unanimous consent and not hearing any objection, we have continued item number 57. Now, can I get a motion to?
Also 56, which is our biannual WIMBY report on pipes. That should be a full report as well.
That should be on. Say that again, sir. You faded away.
That should be a verbal report as well, item 56.
All right, but you're not continuing it. You want it for today.
Oh, assuming they're ready, yes.
All right. All right. Okay. If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to approve the addendum to the agenda?
So move.
We have a motion from Councilman Goods. Do we have a second?
Second, Carlson.
Okay, motion from Councilman Goods, second from Councilman Carlson. Any objection? I hear none. By unanimous consent and without any objection, we have approved the addendum to the agenda and the agenda. All right. We will now go to a 10-minute presentation by Addison Davis, our Superintendent of Hillsborough County Public Schools. Sir, if you're ready to go, please begin.
Yes, sir. Good morning, and thank you, Councilman Galco, and thank everyone related to their continued civic leadership within our community. As you know, coming in for the last 6 months, I never knew that I'd have to become a public health expert, but learned a lot about infectious disease and how we can continue to protect this community. As you know, the industry changing moments in public education is now, and we continue to hold on for 150 years of traditional practices in education, but COVID has really changed the landscape. And we, like everyone else, has focused on educating our students in a virtual manner in order to address our learners in different ways to help them be successful. Openly, when we were elected to, had to transition in March to go to a virtual perspective, we were openly unprepared. We were, we went on spring break and we came back, 7 days later, and we asked our teachers in March to be able to stop on the dime and transition from brick and mortar in order to educate our children in a unique fashion and in a way that they did not set up to, were not trained to do so. 90% of our educators every single day sign up to transition to educate our students in brick and mortar, where 10% of our educators elect to teach in a remote manner. However, due to the pandemic, we've had to transition, we've had to pivot, we've had to be flexible and be able to find proactive solutions in order to connect with our children every single day. As you can see openly, this hasn't been a super popular decision throughout, not only in Hillsborough County, but throughout the state and throughout the nation. COVID-19 has really pushed us to think differently about how we educate our children in multiple facets. And one thing that we did in Hillsborough County, due to the executive order by the Florida Department of Education, we had to identify multiple choices for our constituents. One that allowed our children to come back through brick and mortar, another one that allowed them to continue through the e-learning process and follow their schedule remotely in a most comfortable situation for them. And then we offered Hillsborough Virtual School as another opportunity for our children to continue their education. Right now we have, as we open our doors back on March the 24th, we spent 1 week for Smart Start Week. That week was all about getting connected to our new curriculums, our new learning management platforms, in order for our children to interact remotely, just in case they had to self-isolate or self-quarantine during this present time. To date, we have 215,000 students that have journeyed back to us to the start of the school year. We are projected around 228,000. We do have 13,000 students that we are down in enrollment. We do see an uptick around 3,000 students transition to charter school of that 13,000, and another 3,000 students that have transitioned to home education. That leaves us working with our school-based leaders, our support staff, our social workers, in order to identify where the additional 7,000 students may have transitioned to as they seek to be educated along the way. But in that number, we have, close to 120,000 students that have elected to come back to brick and mortar, and we have over 96,000 students that have elected to learn from a remote perspective. With that said, over 97% of our educators have elected to return. With 25,000 employees, we have 15,000 that are instructional staff members. Of those, the bulk of them have decided to come back. We do have 2.6 of our educators who instruct our children every single day that have elected to transition to a different profession that they can feel most comfortable in, or elected to retire or take leave. However, from our side, as we open the doors, we have been, we see the excitement, we see the interaction, and we see the high quality instruction taking place every day between our students and our runners. But the way we do work and the way that we extended instruction through brick and mortar has been tremendously different. The way that we have, accepted our students from on campus, to the way that we have, had staggered dismissal, all of it looks tremendously different than what we used to know as best practices. If you have little ones that are our family members that are in our schools, you will know that we have modified our classrooms to make certain that we have social distancing where possible, and that we have refined every protocol and every step that we can take in order to mitigate COVID-19. We are requiring face coverings on every one of our campuses. We have one-way directional hallways. We have signage throughout every one of our facilities, all to be able to identify where and how our learners will transition from one classroom to the next, or through common areas. In addition to that, we've taken a serious stance on making certain that we have sufficient amount of PPE for every one of our students and every one of our employees. We've given over 1.2 million masks to our schools and our employees and our organization. We've given over 500,000 gloves. We've given over 42,000 hand sanitizers, and we continue to have over 25,000 signs within our schools in order to make certain that we're taking the right steps to mitigate COVID. And as our students transition to classrooms, they have sanitation stations that allow them to obtain whatever PPE they need in order to make certain they're taking the right steps to protect themselves along with others. And the big thing that we see is that we have cases. The answer is yes. We have students and employees all the time that are coming to our campuses who have symptoms, and or waiting on an assessment. And that has really brought the bulk of our cases that we currently have within Hillsborough County. We're trying to do our best to educate our parents to keep their little ones home, to keep their children home until that assessment has come back negative or positive, so that we can continue to keep them away from any other students who may not have the symptoms, so that we do not have a continued exposure. Some successes we've had along the way. We've done a really good job being able to create different platforms for remote learning. As you know, we transitioned from SB to be able to transition to Canvas, and that's just another suite that allows us to upload lessons, to have full communication between teacher and student and parent and teacher as well, and to be able for our children to continue to identify where they are academically along with their assignments. We've also put in new protocols related to Zoom to be able to further protect our students and our teachers through that interaction. And we've leveraged partnerships such as HEF and other community providers to be able to make certain that we have PPE, Wi-Fi availability, along with addressing the digital divide, because we've given over 40,000 laptops to our students to be able to help them continue to learn in a remote manner. So all that to say is that we have continued to, we've become a logistic manager of PPE, being able to compete not only locally with hospitals, but also every school district in every company within our nation. And we've had developed beautiful relationships with TGH and also USF Health. And that's allowed us to openly allow them to review our reopening plan, our return to athletic plan. And then they've also helped us to create expedited, COVID-19 assessments. We are partnered with Fast Track. There's 10 geographical locations that are located in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco that allow our individuals to, if they're having or identifying symptoms, being able to transition immediately to get an expedited assessment that will get results within 24 hours. The biggest thing is that, I live in school for the first part of my morning. It's one of the first mornings I have it, being able to address each of you, which I'm grateful for. But I spend the time between 7:30 in the morning to noon walking schools every single day to be able to identify trends and patterns about how we can continue to evolve and identify what's working, what's not, and what we can do differently, not only educationally, but also what we can do differently related to being able to accept our children and making certain we have the necessary organizational controls related to our implementation and returning plan for PPE and being enabled for safety. We do see, though, that as we transition back to school and our students hadn't been in a brick and mortar school since March, there are a number of challenges related to equity. Those being, we have many parents and many families that do not have the availability to mobile devices or the availability to internet providers, so that we have been able to partner with many of our community members, being able to partner with business organizations and able to leverage federal money to be able to address this divide. But we also see there's inequities in not only transportation to getting our children to or from schools, but also the availability for e-learners to be able to come and be a part of our grab-and-go meals that we're taking place every single day. We're able to feed around 6.5 million students since March related to during this pandemic. And one thing we've done is remain constant to be able to address our students along the way. E-learning and remote learning has its challenges as well. Being able to make certain that we have the necessary availability for mental health practitioners. We're leveraging telehealth. But there's nothing like being in front of our children to be able to identify what they may be going through, whether it's emotional, whether it's linked to depression, whether it's anxiety, because when they're with us, we're able to have a clearer indication of what they may be going through, and they have a better opportunity to self-refer, to be able to connect with our school counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists. So we're trying to tighten the belt related to what we can do to help individuals who are from that remote learning, because while we're linking through telehealth, we need to be able to make certain that we not only work to develop the whole child, but continue to develop the whole family. But overall, we've been very transparent during this process. We created a data dashboard of COVID cases that identifies not only the number of cases that we've had internally as an organization, but it breaks down by date and also by individualized school, that allows our community to determine what, whether it's an employee or a student at those particular schools, so they can make informed decisions about whether or not they put their child or send their child every single day. And that data dashboard is 7 days a week. It updates every 4 hours. And we're working on doing and creating, and hopefully have it by the weekend or beginning on Monday, to drill down to have maps related to zip codes, so that we can have further information about what we need to do in a particular area to triage and look at systems and processes within a school to have better assistance to our rapid response teams. We will continue our overall theme and goal is to make sure that we have quality education in every one of our schools. As you know, coming into the organization, we were ranked 40th, and we are ranked 40th in the state out of 67 counties academically. And we have got to have a centralized focus of how we're going to continue to provide grade level expectations and grade level content to our children every single day, to push their cognitive demands and allow them to compete not only in the four walls we call our classroom, but also within the community and throughout the nation. So our job is to make sure that we continue to train and hire first round draft picks related to school-based leaders and teachers, and to make certain that we evolve every single day to allow our students to think, to share, to defend, to problem solve, to decision make, to review analytics, to be able to synthesize multiple materials in order for them to be able to be prepared, not only to meet grade level expectations, but prepared to make sure that we transition to enrichment opportunities as well that will help them on national assessments. Big week last week is we transitioned back from athletics. One of the biggest things is how are we going to be able to open the doors for our football stadiums. In our reopening plan for athletics, one thing we did, we're probably around 30 to 33% at capacity. We have allowed every participant who's involved in these activities to have 4 individuals, spectators and family members to come to support them. We have removed any cash from any of our athletic events. Everything is all mobile purchases. And we are making certain that every stadium and every facility is outlined and identified for social distancing. And those 4 individuals of that particular family are expected to sit in pods to create social distancing along the way. We'll continue to look every single week to determine if we can open up for capacity. But right now, we're going to continue for the next 3 weeks to make sure that we have a controlled environment so we can continue to help the community with a downward spike. But so from our perspective, we're leveraging, the CARES grant, we're leveraging the ESSER grant to be able to continue to find solutions to combat COVID, to continue to find ways to connect with our families and our students in order to be successful every single day. The biggest thing we're doing is we've got to make certain we continue to expand our mental health strategies and be able to make this our top priority, to be able to help and assist our stakeholders address any academic behavior difficulties and develop interventions and monitoring students to allow them to be successful. So, I can continue to go on. Overall, I'm so, there was definitely a need. While there was, a lot of conversations, about do we open, do we not open, from back and forth. And this decision was heavy on the board, just like it's heavy on me, the board, along with every superintendent throughout the state and throughout the nation, and every board. Because no matter what decision we made, it was 50-50 split, whether it was returning to school, wearing masks, whether it was having graduations, it became very complex and very difficult. However, the best thing we've done is create a choice and be able to open the doors and do it in a positive, effective, and efficient manner. Will we get better? The answer is yes. Do we have a ways to go? The answer is yes. So being able to connect with our children, allow them to have that socialization, that interaction, and provide interventions and supports will allow us to be successful and hopefully address the achievement gap moving forward. So I'll leave this time for each of you to ask any questions if there's any questions. Once again, I thank you for your civic leadership and what you do for our community.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions for the gentleman? Any council members have any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Goods, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Superintendent, thank you for your leadership, and I really like that you get out and go look and see what's going on and not behind a desk. That's very important to run an organization. I know reading in the paper you've got some budget issues and maybe making some cuts, maybe with staff and teachers. My concern, since most of the I wouldn't say problem schools, but I guess you call them transformation schools, are in my district.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to downsize teachers, possibly. Maybe the class sizes will grow. Is there a plan in place to make sure we kind of keep those class sizes down? Making sure, me being a COVID survivor, I'm very gun shy at this particular point about numbers. So I'm just wondering, with that being said, is there a plan in place when you may probably make your cuts? And if so, all those class sizes possibly will grow, and how we handle that? I think that's very important to know. But I do appreciate the work on the internet situation, because a lot of areas in my zone do not have internet for our kids. So if you can just expound on that, I appreciate that, sir. And again, thank you for your leadership.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman Goals, and you are spot on. So, as you know, coming in, we are $32 million in deficit related to reserves. So this is this was inherited financially. So we've got to figure out how to create organizational controls. And as we have, 21,000 students transition to charter school in the 1920 school year, and when students transition to charter, which that is the parents' right, the organization never looked and looked to right size our schools or the district level related to positions. So when students leave our brick and mortar schools, every time a student leaves, whether it's homeschool, whether it's a private school, whether it's a charter school, the district managed schools do not get that funding for that particular student. Therefore, we've got to make certain that we are right sized in our schools. That means if a school has 100 students, we've got to make certain that we give that school finances and support for the 100 students that they generate. Now, there's definitely opportunities that we will look at related to adding additional positions, or because we have schools, as you said, that are underperforming, that may need school improvement positions, whether that be a reading interventionist, whether that be a math interventionist, whether that be a behavior interventionist, whether that be a coordinator, whether that be a district resource teacher, you name it. It's all contingent on that individualized school's need. We will also look at class size. As you spoke about class size, we are statutorily required to remain in class size. So we will always make certain that every classroom, every school remains in the class size identified by Department of Education, and that is at K3 at K3 averages at 18, 4 through 8 average is 22, and 9 through 12 average is 25. And we will make sure that all allocations are protected so we can have the classrooms as small as we can in order to continue to educate our children in an efficient fashion. And the other way is programmatic. We have a number of our schools that have beautiful pathways such as IB, ACE programs, HVAC programs. They have culinary programs, you name it. We're going to continue to protect the integrity of those programs. The issues become is that we have got to make certain that that our schools are in line with what they generate. Right now, of the 200 schools, we have there are only 15 schools that are not over that are not over $1.5 million each related to over allocated in staff. And that's not only at the school-based level, but that's at the district-based level as well. As I came in, the first thing that I did is I cut $7.5 million in the first 45 days in Hillsborough County, and then we got hit with the pandemic. So we still have right size to do at the district level as well. But openly, I'm going to protect transformation schools. And we have the most D&F schools in any school district in the state of Florida. So my job is to make sure to take these 28 schools, provide them with the resources they need, and make sure that we elevate the experiences in order to eliminate any stigmas, any barriers related to the instructional process. So our transformational schools and every schools can continue to have a staircase approach to becoming healthy. So we've got to make hard decisions overall. As you know, we're spending $4 to $6 million a month on PPE. While we have some federal money to do that, it's not going to cover all of the expenses, because we had to address curriculum for remote learning and also be able to address providing Wi-Fi units to our students and laptops. I purchased 46,000 laptops because when I came in, we only had 28,000 laptops for 220,000 kids, and that wasn't going to allow us to make that and address that digital divide. In addition, we talked about 13,000 students that we are down currently right now. With 13,000 students that we're currently down right now, that's equivalent to $56 million. So not only are we having to deal with $32 million deficit, $4 to $6 million, expenditures related to COVID. So we could potentially have to give back the state of Florida $56 million. So we've got to get to a point where we are back in line with our expenditures, and we are looking at every dollar and every cent to be a reliable organization.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council members?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Superintendent, for being here today. I was at a tea and conversation last Saturday, and the topic that the parents were speaking about was the testing of children at the start of this school session after a 6-month layoff. Was this actual testing or was it an evaluation? And should the parents be concerned about their children being held back in DNF schools because of this early evaluation after 6 months no school?
Councilman, that's a good question. So the one thing we have to do, children haven't been in school since March. And, our children change every single day, intellectually, socially, emotionally. And one thing we're required to do by the Florida Department of Education is have a progress monitoring plan. And in that monitoring plan, we've got to make certain that we have a baseline in a mid-year and an end-of-year assessment to show what we're doing in order to inform our instruction. It is a necessity to be able to, when our children come back and they haven't been back from March, to have baseline assessments determine where they are from a math perspective, where they are intellectually from a literacy perspective. So, and that information is going to allow us to scaffold and differentiate instruction to be allowed to determine whether or not our students know a core concept. Can we selectively abandon that core concept? Do we need to reteach a core concept? Do we have to go back and teach spiral curriculum? Do they miss in the 4th 9 weeks? Or do our children's readiness level, did our parents and did our children punch their time card in during the time that they were out during the summer to be able to continue that learning process? What we're seeing is that there is a divide, and that information is why it is a baseline assessment. It's only being used to be able to drive the instructional process. No longer are we ever sitting there going to sit and get where the teachers cover material for core concepts and we hope children get it. We are introducing the concept for 20 minutes, and then we're creating small group instructional stations that we rotate children and group children based on their readiness levels and based on their need to build the strategies and to build the skills to allow them to be successful from a standard perspective. Parents should be embracing, our baseline assessments. That's going to give them immediate information where their children are. Was there true summer learning loss? Was there learning loss from us transitioning from March? Or are our children continuing to progress so that we can inform the instructional process? So I think it's a good thing that none of this information is being used to determine whether or not a child is being placed back into another grade. I'm telling you openly right now, retention, there's no research that says retention is a positive strategy. However, there is accountability. You know what? When students don't give best effort and there are needs that we need to address through interventions and support, it's our job to do it. It's also our job to have crucial and confident conversations with our parents and our learners to let them know where they are intellectually and academically so that we can build individual plans to allow them to be successful. So every one of these baseline assessments that we're doing is a way for us to determine where our learners are and how can we better help them along the way as they transition. So this is nothing new. We've had baseline assessments in this district prior to me. The only issue that may create noise, and openly it's a good question, is that those who are in the remote learning, e-learning perspective, we have to, we're trying to proctor, when you got 22 kids, in an e-learning class, remote learning class, and putting them on the Zoom, it's very hard to proctor 22 kids to make certain that they are following and they're following the protocols related to assessment. So that's where we're having to do it in a smaller fashions of 5 to make it more manageable to be able to proctor students, and that may have somewhat extended the window. But openly, we're getting better every single day, and we'll be better as we transition through this process.
Thank you, Superintendent, for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Vera, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very, very brief. Just thank you, sir, for coming on. I just wanted to thank everybody in our school system for your very hard work. There have been, different elected bodies look at the different decisions that other elected bodies have to make, and you think to yourself, those are really tough decisions. I tell people that a lot of the votes that elected officials take, they're not black and white. In other words, it's not 100% right and 0% wrong. A lot of them are gray, and we're wise men and women have got to make balancing decisions in terms of seeing what the greater good is. There are a lot of people that agree with what the school board has done. There are a lot of people that disagree with what the school board has done. But I hope that everybody appreciates those tough decisions that have been had to be made. Very, very difficult decision by a lot of men and women. And then additionally, and I know this has been mentioned, but just how we have to consistently salute. We talk about our frontline workers in COVID. We can't forget our teachers, our administrators, our custodians, the staff people at schools. That is so very important. And these are men and women who are going out right now and literally putting themselves potentially at risk to varying degrees for COVID-19. We all of us as city council members should, to the extent that it's not done, organize appreciation days for some of our local schools in our districts, for the staff and the teachers, et cetera. I mean, but before COVID-19, I think it's a general fact that in Florida and much of the United States, our public school professionals and staff just aren't given the monetary support that they need, just through other systems. Doesn't matter who's in charge. It's just a fact throughout the state of Florida with public schools. You add COVID to it, our hats ought to be off to appreciation for that. So I just wanted to, again, salute the hard work and consideration that goes into making some of these choices, where a balancing act has got to be made. And it's never easy. And some of those choices I've seen, and they're very difficult to make. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you for your service, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, Superintendent. Next up, we have FDOT.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Chair. This is Vic Bide, Director, Mobility Department. Earlier on June 25th of this year, Council made a motion to invite FDOT to present various projects that they have going on within our city. And they have many projects, and we have a very good partnership with FDOT. They not only invest significantly on the major arterials that are state roads within the city, but also augment our capital dollars to make projects that are critical to our strategy for bike, ped, resilience, and equity within the city possible as well. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Alex with FDOT to present on a couple of these projects along Kennedy Boulevard. Alex?
Great. Thank you so much, Vic, and thank you so much, City Council, for giving us the opportunity to come this morning and share this information with you. My name is Alex Henry. I am the Bicycle Pedestrian Coordinator for FDOT District 7. And this morning, we are going to be sharing some information regarding a couple of corridor projects that we have upcoming on the Kennedy Boulevard corridor, which we understand is a very important corridor for the City of Tampa. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. Yes, so as I mentioned, there are two projects that we currently have programs and upcoming along Kennedy Boulevard. The first of which you can see on the map there in kind of the purple color, goes from West Shore Boulevard to the west to Woodland Avenue to the east, which for reference is just west of McDill Avenue is the closest major side street. This project is currently in design, and construction is anticipated to begin the process in May of 2021. And we'll get into a little more detail of what the scope of that project looks like, but essentially we are making access management improvements to improve safety along the corridor, as well as looking at a lot of different bicycle and pedestrian improvements. The second project we have is a little bit further out. We are just about now to get into the process of starting the design and the construction is scheduled to begin in 2023. But as part of that project, we're looking at a lot of different types of improvements. We'll be resurfacing the roadway, making some bicycle pedestrian improvements, and also improving the drainage, which we'll get into in a little more detail in a future slide. Next slide, please. So to start off, I just wanted to provide a little bit of historical context as to how this project came about, and we'll spend most of the presentation talking about that first project from West Shore to Woodland Avenue, since we're a little bit further along and we have some more details to share with you. So a few years back, our safety office noticed that there was a really high concentration of crashes along this section of Kennedy Boulevard. And so as a result, they commissioned a safety study to kind of look into it, dig into the crash report, see why these crashes are happening, and to try to identify some countermeasures that we could employ to try to reduce those crashes. And what they found is that we have a really high concentration of crashes at a lot of our minor unsignalized intersections along the corridor. And if you've ever driven in this area and tried to either go straight or turn left onto Kennedy during rush hour, I think it's pretty easy to understand why. Kennedy Boulevard is a very high volume roadway throughout much of the day, and it's really hard to get a gap in both directions to allow you to make that through or left maneuver onto Kennedy Boulevard. And I think as a result, a lot of people get impatient, they maybe misjudge their gaps, and as a result, we see a lot of T-bone type crashes at some of these unsignalized intersections, which is a crash type that we really try to focus in on reducing because they're much more likely to result in a fatality or a serious injury. So when you see a lot of these crash types at these unsignalized intersections, a really effective strategy that you can implement to help reduce those crashes is implementing access management type improvements. And when we talk about access management, in this case, what we're really talking about doing is introducing some type of median channelization to restrict the number of turning movements that are available at the intersection, and in turn reduce the conflict points at that given intersection. Generally speaking, the fewer conflict points an intersection has, the fewer crashes that you see. So we took a look at 10 intersections along this corridor, again, from West Shore to Woodland Avenue, that kind of look like the graphic that you see in the top right of your screen. There's currently no median channelization. Drivers on the side street are able to go straight through Kennedy Boulevard. They're able to turn left. You're able to turn left off of Kennedy onto the side street. So there's really no restriction. You can kind of turn anywhere. And as a result, as you can see, there are a lot of conflict points. So what we're doing is at 3 of those locations, we're installing what we call a directional median opening, which you can see an example of in the graphic on the bottom there, which essentially what we're doing in that case is we're maintaining the ability for drivers on Kennedy to turn left onto the side street, but we are taking away the ability of the people on the side street to go straight and to turn left onto Kennedy, which again reduces those conflict points and makes it much safer. At 7 of those other intersections, we are implementing what we call a full median closure, which is essentially we are installing a full median, which completely restricts the ability to not just turn left off of the side street, but also to turn left off of Kennedy onto the side street. So significantly reducing those number of conflict points, significantly reducing the potential for those T-bone crashes that we were talking about, and making it much safer for all road users. In addition to the median modifications, we are also extending the turn lanes at 21 locations. There are several locations along the corridor where the existing lengths of the turn lanes do not meet our standards, and that can introduce some operational issues and also some safety issues with traffic backing up through the turn lanes into the through lanes and causing rear end crashes and side crashes that we're hoping that these improvements will help mitigate. Next slide, please. In addition to the access management changes, the department recognizes that Kennedy Boulevard is a very urban corridor. There's a lot of transit service, and there's a lot of bicycle and pedestrian activity. So we really wanted to do everything that we could as part of this project to also address the safety and comfort of bicyclists and pedestrians along the corridor. So we're making improvements to the sidewalks, widening them to as wide as 8 feet where we can within the existing right-of-way, and also making sure that all the sidewalks in the corridor are compliant with Americans with Disability Act's requirements. So making sure that there aren't obstructions in the sidewalk that folks in wheelchairs or mobility devices can't navigate around, making sure that our curb ramps are compliant and that all of our slopes are meeting standard and are easy to navigate for people of any disability status. We're also focused on the crossing, so making Kennedy Boulevard easier and safer to cross for pedestrians. So at all of the signalized intersections along the corridor, we look for opportunities to improve the intersection geometry, which essentially means we looked at kind of the corner radii and look for opportunities to kind of tighten those up to reduce the amount of distance that pedestrians need to cross when crossing the street, and also kind of encouraging drivers to take those turns a little slower and improve some better yielding behavior at those signalized intersections. In coordination with TICO and the City of Tampa, we're also going to be upgrading the existing lighting at all of the signalized intersections to LED. And as you can see on that graphic at the bottom there, it kind of shows the difference between our traditional high pressure sodium lighting, which is out there today, and LED lighting. And as you can see, the LED lighting is much brighter, and it also stays brighter for much longer than our traditional lighting, which is very important, especially considering that we have a disproportionate number of our bicycle and our pedestrian crashes occurring during nighttime hours. So these are very important safety improvements. In addition to that, we are also adding a new pedestrian crossing into the at the intersection of Kennedy and Henderson. Currently, there is a traffic signal there, but there is no pedestrian crosswalk or opportunity for pedestrians to cross the street. So we're installing push buttons and pedestrian signals and providing that opportunity as part of this project. Next slide, please. Collaboration with the City of Tampa has been a huge part of this project. It has been a very iterative design process, as again, we understand that this corridor is very important to the city for a number of reasons. So throughout the design process, we have been working hand in hand with City of Tampa staff, making sure that they're aware of what we're doing, giving them opportunity to review our design plans and voice any comments or concerns that might come up. So there have been several aspects of this project where City of Tampa staff has brought things to our attention, and we've been able to kind of augment our design to incorporate some of those requests. So some of those examples are wider sidewalks. When this project was originally scoped, I think we were proposing to only widen to 6 feet sidewalk. However, the city came back to us. They mentioned that just given the level of multimodal activity, they would really like to see something wider where we can. So we were able to go back to the drawing board and identify some additional opportunities where we were able to squeeze in some additional sidewalk width within the existing right-of-way. Speed management is also something that we've had a lot of conversations about, and resulting from conversations with the city, we were able to conduct a speed study along the stretch and have determined that we can reduce the speed limit from 45 to 40 miles an hour. Landscaping has also been another key area of coordination. One of the unfortunate consequences of some of those turn lane extensions that I mentioned earlier is that by extending the turn lanes, it would require us to remove some of the existing landscaping that is out on the corridor. So we work very closely with the City of Tampa Parks and landscaping departments to kind of look for opportunities to minimize the amount of landscaping impacts that we would need to make, looking to preserve the irrigation systems that the city already has in place in the medians to help save that cost to the city, and come up with a good solution where we're able to maintain as much of that great landscaping as we can while still providing the safety benefit that we need to make by extending the turn lanes. And then the other thing that I'll mention is the city kind of encouraged us to look at additional opportunities to introduce new pedestrian crossings as part of this project. So as a result of that conversation, we have been evaluating a new pedestrian crossing at Grady Avenue, which is between West Shore and Del Mabry. And we're in the process of evaluating that right now. And it's looking pretty good that we'll be able to incorporate it within this project. Next slide, please. The last thing I wanted to touch on with this project is just an overview of the public engagement that we've done. Later this year, we'll be hosting a virtual public hearing due to some of the median access changes that I mentioned earlier. So it'll be publicly notified, and all of our stakeholders and all of the property owners adjacent to the corridor will be notified. it'll be an opportunity for everybody to come and view the concept we're proposing, learn more about the project, ask questions, and provide feedback as part of that. So we're working on scheduling that now, but it will definitely be occurring before the end of the year. In coordination with that, we'll also be sending out notices to adjacent property owners that might be impacted by some of those median changes that we're talking about. And from there, we have a process that they can provide feedback and voice concerns, and we work with them to kind of mitigate some of that as appropriate. We've also made a series of presentations to various stakeholder groups along the corridor. We presented to all of the Hillsborough MPO's advisory committees and also to the West Shore Alliance's advisory committee. And the last thing I'll mention, this is exciting, is we have recorded a public information video, which we just released on our YouTube page yesterday, and we'll be promoting via social media and coordinating with the West Shore Alliance and the city staff to kind of get it out to local neighborhood groups. But we put together this really neat couple-minute video that kind of just gives a very good overview of what the project is, what the improvements are that we're making, what the time frame is, and how they can get in contact with us if they want to learn more or have any questions or concerns. So we feel that this will be a good tool to kind of broaden our public outreach and better inform the public about some of the changes that we have coming along the corridor. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have two projects along Kennedy Boulevard, the second of which takes off where the project that I've been speaking about left off at Woodland and continues on to Brevard Avenue, which for reference is just west of where Kennedy splits off into Grand Central, right in that UT area. Next slide, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, before he goes on to the next segment, could I ask a question about the prior segment before we get too far?
Sure, and I just have one quick slide on this too, and we'll be done with the presentation.
Oh, okay, I thought you had a whole nother presentation on this. Sorry.
No, go ahead, sir.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so just real quick on the second project, as I mentioned, this is a little bit further along, a little bit further behind, so we don't have as many details to share at the moment. However, just kind of a high level overview of what we'll be including as part of this project. As I mentioned, this is a resurfacing project, so we will be repaving and restriping the entirety of the roadway from Woodland to Brevard. As part of this project, we're also looking at installing 3 new traffic signals along the corridor, as well as evaluating 2 new pedestrian crossings. So really trying to increase the number of pedestrian crossings that we have on this stretch of the corridor. Again, we're looking to widen the sidewalks to as wide as 10 feet within the existing right-of-way, and also looking at a lot of the same types of intersection safety improvements that we discussed on the previous project. In addition to that, this is an area where we do get a lot of drainage complaints, so we'll be looking at opportunities to improve the drainage where we can while we're out there with this project. And just the last thing, just a quick overview of what we're looking at with the project schedule. Right now, we just brought the design consultant on board. We'll be beginning the design process in early 2021, and the project will be letting in early 2023, and we'll see construction activities start soon after that. So one thing I will say about this project is I was actually on the contract selection committee when we were bringing in the designer that we're going to work with. And as the design firms were kind of coming in with us and meeting with us to kind of ask us, what we see as really being important as part of this job, the one thing that we told everybody was that coordination with the City of Tampa is going to be absolutely paramount as part of this. We're going to be working very closely with them, and that's going to be a big focus. So I would definitely anticipate that the same spirit of collaboration that we mentioned in the first project will continue with this one, and we'll have a really great project and product that both the department and the city will be very proud of. So next slide. So as I mentioned, that is all we had prepared in regards to these 2 projects on Kennedy Boulevard. I also have Caravan Etten, who is the design project manager for the first project that we talked a little bit more in depth about, who is much better qualified than me to answer maybe some of the more technical design related questions that you may have. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Henry, for your presentation. I think this, these updates from the DOT to council and the community are very helpful. Just a couple of detailed questions in regard to the median closures. The city did some of that along Himes, and it kind of caused a big stir after the fact. I'm sure Mr. Bide can confirm that. So I just want to make sure that you said you were reaching out to the West Shore Alliance and down the road reaching out to neighborhood associations. There's some very active neighborhood associations, including Beach Park and Swan Estates and Armory Gardens, et cetera, you know, along there. And I just want to make sure that you reach out to them early and often. In regard to those closures, I can see what you're saying. We'll lose some median landscaping when you're extending the lanes, but it seems to me that we could gain some median landscaping when you're actually making those 7 closures. Is that part of the design anticipated?
This is Caravana and for speak to the median closure. So currently, the left turn lanes along Kennedy Boulevard are deficient. They don't have the required deceleration and storage length on those. So when we extend the left turn lane to meet the department standard, we'll be reducing some of the median landscaping. There are opportunities in the 7 locations that we are doing full median closures to provide landscaping, but we did the overall length of landscaping will be slightly reduced because we are upgrading the left turn lanes to meet department standards.
It just no, I hear you and I understand what you're saying. It just seems like there should be a trade-off that, you know, where we're losing median landscaping in one areas, we should gain it in the others. Is the department ready to put that in, or is that something the city has to put in?
So the median landscaping itself, we are going to be removing it with the project and providing sod in the medians, and the city can coordinate with the department to provide a future landscaping project along the corridor. So is it going to be irrigated as part of the construction? We are preserving some of the irrigation systems with our current project.
I'm referring to the 7 closures.
We don't install irrigation systems with this current project, but with the future landscaping project, irrigation.
Okay. So Mr. Bide is listening, and we'll have to address this down the road, but I think we need to get involved in that, and wherever those closures are, let's put in irrigation and put in landscaping. Okay, my next question is related to the neighborhood impacts. So when you close some of those lanes, I know you guys have probably done some modeling in terms of where that traffic is going to go. You know, is it all going to come flushing out and make the Lois crossing and the Manhattan crossing and some of those other major crossings that much busier and slow people down at those major intersections?
So between Lois and West Shore, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4. There'll still be 4 intermediate median openings. And since Kennedy is a 3-lane in each direction, they will have the ability to U-turn onto Kennedy or go down one of the side streets. So we have looked at the traffic at West Shore and Lois, extended the turn lanes to accommodate the traffic. But given that there's still intermediate openings along the corridor and they have the ability to U-turn, they should be able to access the businesses still.
Okay. All right. And you're making this presentation to the MPO at some point, Alex?
Correct. Yeah. So we've prior to COVID, so a few months back, we've delivered this very similar presentation to all the MPO advisory committee.
Yeah, not the MPO advisory. Not the MPO itself.
I don't believe we have that scheduled at the time, but we can definitely coordinate with MPO staff.
I think that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman
this is Carson.
Wait, Citro, then Carlson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Councilman Dingfelder, thank you very much for bringing up Himes Avenue. My professional career has been in West Tampa, and when the Himes Avenue medians were changed, there was a public outcry because with those median changes, you have the inability to make a left-hand turn. But my point to that is, has the first responders been informed about what's going to be happening without the ability to make a left-hand turn on Kennedy Boulevard? And if so, how are they feeling about that? That's question number one. Question number two is, I'm glad to see that you're going to be widening the sidewalks. However, there has been major complaints from the ADA about utility poles being in the middle of those sidewalks. Are you working with the utilities to maybe have those poles removed, and or are you going to make those sidewalks wide enough where those utility poles will no longer be an issue? Thank you.
To my knowledge, we haven't yet reached out to the first responders, but we certainly can reach out to them and let them know exactly which closures are going to happen. We will be hosting a virtual public hearing, as Alex mentioned in his presentation, to involve all of the business owners, so they'll have an opportunity, in addition to reaching out once they receive the video, to let us know their concerns, if they have concerns about specific median openings, and potentially we would potentially keep them open. We did that on the Southdale Mabry project. We had to be PH in January, and there were a couple openings that the department was originally closing, but the neighborhood had valid reasons on why they should remain open, and we worked with them and added 2 additional openings. So yeah, we will reach out to the first responders and talk with them about that. And then in regards to the utility poles along the corridor, we aren't doing any overhead utility relocations as part of this project. We are going to widen the sidewalks to 8 feet where the right of way is feasible. And if there are any pinch points, they will be ADA compliant, which I believe is 30. It'll be ADA compliant, so there won't be any deficient widths along the corridor.
Well, I thank you very much. I'm sure the people with the ADA will be very, very happy, but I would hope that you would go to the first responders, because with your projection here of being able to calm crashes during rush hour, at the peak of rush hour, it would be much harder for an emergency vehicle to make a right-hand turn, to go down to the nearest U-turn section just to get back to where they were. So I thank you, and I hope you do reach out to them very, very soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, we have Councilman Carlson. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to let everybody know that anybody who's watching for the first time or hasn't watched in a while, this used to be under the CRA, and the briefings were limited to the CRA area. So I want to thank DOT for expanding the role and covering areas like South Tampa that don't have CRAs, and look forward to hearing other updates from you all in the future. Transportation is the top issue that I get questions about. Flooding is probably the second one, and they're both related. So thank you all for doing that. And also this morning we had Chris Vela who rattled through a whole bunch of good suggestions, and I hope that you all will listen to those and take those seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any council members that wish to speak at this time? I hear none. We're going to move on. Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate the speakers this morning. All right, we will now, we have requests by the public for reconsideration of legislative matters, which, let's see, we do not. All right, moving forward with the agenda, we now go to item number 2. Item number 2.
Yes, good morning, Councilman. Mr. Chair and council members, this is Jan McLean with the Office of the City Attorney. Item number 2 is a first reading of an ordinance regarding our revisions to Chapter 14 Section 197 voting restricted areas. And Carla Price and I with the Parks and Recs Department, who is also on the phone, and we have representatives from the Tampa Police Department, Marine Patrol on the phone as well. We had the opportunity to speak to most of the council members and provided information to everyone. This has been a long initiative to bring consistent implementation of speed zones through a majority of the river that goes through town. And as we had indicated previously in our presentation to each one of you, we've worked for about 3.5 years with the FWC up in Tallahassee. The majority of the zones starts right a little bit above the Columbus Bridge Drive and goes through downtown. Suling, is it possible to bring up the graphic that I had sent to you so as we speak, the council members could see it? Thank you. What you have is the different portions of the river that we are proposing to do revisions to the speed zones. We're going from north to south. As you see, there's 3 other areas along the river bridges that we have taken the opportunity to propose the speed zones along those areas as well. Now, things that you need to know is that the statute only provides for local governments to implement speed zones under certain criteria. And we relied on our good working relationship with the FWC to accomplish almost all of the river. As I'd indicated, we have one 900-foot gap, which we will continue to work to find criteria that we could include. And that gap, as we have indicated to the council members that we spoke to, starts at Rick's on the River and goes a little bit in front of the cruisecade. The reasons that that isn't included is that we do not have public facilities in that area on which that we could rely to include. There you have in front of you now is, and that slide is the gap. It says Hillsborough River. That's the gap to which I was referring. Upon approval of this proposed revisions to these to this chapter, the FWC requires that we publish twice, once a week before the second reading. And if there were any changes made today, and we're hoping that you would accept what we have in front of you, those changes would have to go back to FWC for their review, and then additional time would be added to being able to implement these proposed revisions. As I've said, we have Carla Price with our Parks and Recs, who's been very integral in getting this accomplished, and at least one, maybe 2 members of our Tampa Police Department Marine Patrol are on the line as well to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from council members?
Mr. Chair.
Is that Councilman Goods?
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir. I briefly spoke with the administration yesterday about this issue because I don't know a lot about voting per se. And I was asking about the speed when we talk about implementing these speed zones. And they gave the example of a wake area and so forth and so on. But I kind of did a little research and I see some areas do have a miles per hour. I just want to talk to the TPD guys who are on the water and ask of such signage, or is there a required class for boaters? I really don't know. So they can answer those questions for me.
All right, whoever's on the line to answer those questions.
Captain Delahaye with TPD. The miles per hour is not for the idle speed zone, no wake zone, or a slow down minimum wake zone. There's no real miles per hour that can be associated with those. Boating requirements, I think if you're underage, there's a Florida boater safety class. There's a date of age, birth date of age, where you are exempt from taking that. But the miles per hour thing specifically is not is not set. You have to think about it with idle zone. Each boat's going to idle at a different speed depending on the draft, depending on the makeup of the hull, depending on the motors attached. It might idle faster than the other, than another boat. So.
All right, Councilman. Councilman Goods?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right. Any other questions from council members at this time?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Goods brought up an issue that I should have included as well. Upon adoption of these proposed revisions after second reading, this will conclude our application package that we submit to FWC, where we are applying for the ability to install signage along these zones. So this is another integral part of needing to get the ordinance approved so that we can install the signage, as Mr. Goods had asked about.
All right, so we read the ordinance and then we get another motion to set for the resolution, correct?
We read the ordinance and set the second reading for October the 15th as requested.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
And the resolution.
Judge Mark?
Yes, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. Martin Shelby. I noticed on the agenda that the staff is requesting that the attached revised notice of publication be substituted. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
It says for item number 2, that the memorandum requesting the attached revised notice for publication be substituted. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
There was a revised notice included, yes. So the resolution set the time and date for to publish the notices in the paper, directing the clerk. That was substituted.
Okay, well, then, Mr. Chairman, what I would like is, for the purposes of the record, that City Council, and you can do that by unanimous consent, to substitute the revised notice as requested by staff.
Okay.
And then you could take the actions requested.
All right. Any other questions from council? All right. In reading this, before we go to the ordinance being presented for first reading, remember to substitute the revised notice and include that. Who would like to go ahead and read the ordinance?
Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilman Good. The ordinance for number 2, remember with the substituted revised notice.
File number E2020-8CH14, order to be presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, relating to boating restrictions, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinance, Chapter 14, Office, amending Section 14-197, boating restricted areas established, repealing all ordinance or part of the ordinance in conflict where providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right, so we have. Who was the second, Councilman Citro?
Miranda.
Miranda with the second. Is there any objection?
No, sir, I think that has to be a roll call vote, please.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. We have the motion from Good, second from Miranda. Go ahead.
Sorry. Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on October 15th, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
All right.
And now,
then,
Mr. Chairman, you can by unanimous consent accept the substitute revised notice, please.
do you want a motion to move the resolution?
No, take a motion to accept the substitute by unanimous
All right.
consent.
Motion to accept the substituted revised notice.
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman Goods. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Miranda.
Miranda with the second. Is there any objection? Any objection? Hearing none by unanimous consent and without any objection, motion passes. Thank you very much. Next,
Now you
we
have the
have
resolution, sir. Resolution itself.
may I have a motion to move the resolution?
Moved.
Second, Miranda.
Motion by Councilman Good, second from Councilman Miranda. Do we need a roll call vote on this, Mr. Shelby?
Please.
Roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro. Citro. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried with Citro being absent at vote.
Thank you very much. We now go to item number 3.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and council members. Jan McLean with the Office of the City Attorney again. This is item number 3, proposing revisions to Chapter 26 with regard to the incorporation of revised capacity fees for water and wastewater. This item was before you at the last City Council meeting, and we requested the continuance to address some questions that had been raised, both internally and by council member. And we believe that we have answered those questions and resolved the issues. What we present in front of you today is a slightly revised, not substantively revised, ordinance for first reading.
All right, are there any questions or comments? I hear no questions or comments. Who would like to go ahead and read the substitute ordinance being presented for first reading? The substitute ordinance for item number 3.
I'll read it.
Go ahead, Councilman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to substitute file number E 2020-8, Chapter 26. Move to substitute ordinance presented for first reading, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, relating to utility rates, fees, and charges, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 26, Utility Article I, Administrative Provisions, Article 3, Wastewater, amending Section 26-31, Utility Rates, Fees, and Charges, utilizing reserved Sections 26 through 37 to be entitled Water Capacity Fee, amending Section 26-117, definition amending Sections 23-123, application for sanitary sewer commitment, connection, or services, execution of service application, considered contract between applicant and city, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing severability, providing an effective date.
All right, do we have a second to the motion?
Second, Citro.
Second from Councilman Citro. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira. Vieira.
Sorry, was on mute. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Dingfelder.
Yes. Yes, something.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson, yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on October 15th, 2020 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to committee reports. And first up is the Public Safety Committee with Council Member Citro, items 4 through 9.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move consent agenda items 4 through 9. Second,
All right.
Miranda.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Miranda. Is there any objection? Any objection? All right, by unanimous consent, we have moved those items because there was no objection. All right,
Mr.
thank you very
Chairman.
much.
Mr. Chairman?
Would you like a roll call vote on the consent agenda, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a roll call vote for item 9 through, I'm sorry, 4 through 9.
Yes. Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right. Next up, we have Councilmember Orlando Goods with Parks and Rec, items 10 through 16.
Mr. Chairman, I move items 10 through 16, sir.
Second. Miranda.
We have a Councilman Goods, second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All righty. Items number 17 through 26, that's Councilmember John Dingfelder. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. As chairman of the Public Works Committee, I'll move items 17 through 27?
26.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right,
Second.
motion from Councilman Dingfelder, the second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Vieira. Vieira.
I'm so sorry. Mute again. Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next up, we have the Finance Committee with Councilmember Miranda, items 27 through 30.
Chairman, move items 27 through 30. Second, Citro.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Citro. Roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next up, we have Building, Zoning, and Preservation with Councilmember Carlson, items 31 through 37.
Yes,
Just
Mr.
to
Chair.
make a note, there was a memorandum sent yesterday afternoon asking to remove item number 35 because it's a duplicate.
Okay, so items then 31 through
Miranda.
we have a motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, and if I could have a motion to remove item number 35 then.
Move to,
All right,
second.
we have a motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilmember Carlson. Roll call vote to remove item number 35.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next is Transportation Committee with Councilmember Vieira, items 38 through 44, but remember that item 43 was pulled by Councilman Dingfelder.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I hereby move items 38 through 42 and 44.
Second,
All right,
Miranda.
we have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okie dokie. That handles the consent agenda. We now go to items for public hearings.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Martin Shelby, sorry to interrupt. Item 45, did you take that up?
We have not. We're at it right now. Then I need a motion to open the public hearing, correct?
Well, this is just an item being sent by council consent. It's actually moving the resolution, and as you see in the memorandum from Janice McLean that's referenced, whoever moves that resolution, then before you move the resolution, you make the announcement that is stated at the bottom of the page and publicly.
Okay.
So we can do that to comply with Florida law.
Yes, sir. So with item number 45, so we do not have to make a motion to open a public hearing. No, sir, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In
I'll
item
move-
number 45, before
I'll move
you,
the res-
yeah. Wait, before you move the resolution, you have to read the statement that is at the bottom of 45.
All right, I'll read that.
All right, go
A
ahead.
public hearing will be held regarding a proposed brownfield area designation for the rehabilitation and redevelopment of one parcel, approximately 2.5 acres in size, located at 2215 East Henry Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33610, folio 150997-000. This public hearing will be held at the Graham at Grace Point Training Room, located at 2400 Henry Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33610. And with that, I will move the resolution.
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second? Item number 45.
Second, Miranda.
Second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have item number 46, which is a review hearing that needs to be scheduled on a date determined by City Council. Is there a date that anybody has in mind? If not, I'll bring up the calendar here and we will
Yeah,
figure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Martin Shelby again. I've had the opportunity to speak with Susan Johnson Velez from the City Attorney's Office, and she has conferred with staff. With regard to November 12th of 2020 at 5:01 p.m., there are already 10 cases scheduled. Remind you, this is a review hearing, but twofold. Number one is this can be scheduled for 5:01, and in November, if the trend continues downward in terms of COVID cases, there's a good possibility that council will be back meeting in person by November 12th. So if council is willing to go over the 10 case limit, which is actually past October 1st that it originally said, then I would recommend November 12th, 2020 at 5:01 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder and a second from Councilman Goods. Do we need a roll call vote or unanimous consent?
It's a petition for review. Roll call vote for the sake of.
All right.
the record.
Roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. We now go to item number 47. And in 47, it's a public hearing. Can I get a motion to open item number
So move,
47?
Mr. Chairman, open number 47.
Second,
Motion
Citro.
from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. Any objection to opening the public hearing? I hear none. By unanimous consent and without any objection, the public hearing for item number 47 is open. Council Attorney Shelby, I believe you have a resolution, but there's more to it than just what is there.
It appears so, Mr. Chairman. You could take, my suggestion is you take the ordinance first and we'll take up the issue to follow, okay?
All right, we have this ordinance. This is for the Affordable Housing Committee, that one locally elected official serve on that. If there's no questions at this time, can I get an ordinance, someone to read this ordinance? Who would like to read it?
I'll be glad to read it, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Dingfelder, go ahead, sir.
All right, item 47, 2020-8, chapter 17.5, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, chapter 17.5, paren, affordable housing, sustainability, and concurrency management system, close paren, to bring it into compliance with chapter 2020-27 laws of Florida, including to require that one locally elected official serve on the city's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and to clean up references to growth management development services department, specifically amending sections 17.5-2, 17.5-5, 17.5-10, 17.5-12, and 17.5-50 City of Tampa Code, repealing all ordinances, parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Miranda.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, if we could inquire of the public, if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak to this item?
All right, Madam Clerk, do we have anybody that has registered to speak or is at the convention center or has submitted any written document for public
No,
comment
sir.
on item number 47?
No, sir, we did not receive any registration to speak, nor written comments or recordings, and there is no one present at the Tampa Convention Center.
All right. Hearing that, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder with a second from Councilmember Miranda. If we could have a roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you can, just for the purposes of the record, if you can close the hearing by unanimous consent, and we'll move on to the next item.
May I have a motion to close this item?
So move.
Motion from Councilman Goods. Do we have a second?
Second, Dingfelder.
Second by Councilman Dingfelder. Unless there's any objection, I hear none. The public hearing is now closed. Mr. Shelby, I believe you have the resolution here.
Yes, Council, you had received a resolution that I had prepared per direction and provided it to Council. However, and that resolution for the file, which the clerk has in her possession, has the name of Councilman Orlando Goods. So my suggestion is that you address the issue, and you ask Councilman Goods to address that issue.
Councilman Goods, do you have any comments regarding the appointment to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for a 3-year term?
Sir, I'm gracious that I was asked to be part of this committee, but I want to decline at this particular time. I have several other committees dealing with housing, and I know my colleague, Mr. Dingfelder, is very interested in being a part of housing. So I'd like to offer this this resolution to him, if that's permissible, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and who did you say? Did you say Dingfelder?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilman Dingfelder, would you graciously accept that, and we can edit this this resolution and put your name instead of Councilmember Goods?
I'd be honored to serve. Thank you to the Councilman Goods and all of council.
All
Mr.
right,
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
because this is a time-sensitive matter, as it's my understanding, I have taken the opportunity to edit that resolution and forward it to the clerk so she has it in her possession. So I would ask whoever makes the motion to move the substitute resolution.
Okay, may I have a motion to move the substitute
Move
resolution?
the substitute resolution as amended.
All right, Councilman Miranda with the motion. Who is the second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Goods. Is there any objection? Hearing none, by unanimous consent. we
Sir,
have
I'm
moved
going to
it-
ask for, as this involves state law, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this one.
Okay, let's get a roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, congratulations, Councilmember Dingfelder. You have now been appointed.
Thank you.
All right, item number 48 48, well, we have the staff reports and unfinished business. Before we go to item number 48, Councilman Dingfelder, since you had pulled item 43, would you like to begin with that, and we can get that one out of the way?
Sure. Item 43 is a list of transportation projects that the city is submitting to the Independent Oversight Committee as related to the All for Transportation budget. Every year, according to the referendum, we have to submit that list. We did it last year, I think, for the first time, and we're doing it this year. My only point on this, and I already discussed this with Mr. Bide without objection, is that every year when we do this, I don't think it should be on consent because it's such an important item. So I think it needs to be, something that we pay a little extra attention to. And also, Mr. Bide and I discussed the possibility of workshopping this list probably sometime in the summer prior to the actual transmission of it. So that way the community could have some real input on the list. And my last comment on it, and then I'll ask Mr. Bide to speak to any of this, is to make sure that we spread the wealth around. In other words, that we make sure that we have projects listed on that are going to get all for transportation money in all 4 districts of the city, and for obvious reasons. So, Mr. Bide, anything you want to add on that?
Sure. Good morning, Chair and Council. Vic Bide, Director, Mobility Department. So like the councilman said, we did discuss it, and we completely agree that these projects should be workshopped and brought in front of the community and discussed. Of course, given where we are at with the surtax right now, some of those actions were not completely possible, but we concur. And for FY22, when the surtax is approved, fingers crossed, we will workshop this with the community well in advance of our September 30th deadline to submit it to the Independent Oversight Committee. As far as spreading the projects across districts, we're very sensitive of that. And what I'd like to reaffirm is our commitment to do so and make sure that all of our projects and the money is spent across many districts. And in the last 2 years that we've submitted, including 2021 and last year, 2020, we do have projects in all the districts, of course. As we develop our moves plan, we will continue that commitment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions, Councilman Dingfelder?
So that's all I have. If nobody else has any questions, I'll move item 43.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goode,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. Now we go to item number 48 under staff reports. We have this item here. Item number 48.
Good morning,
Any
Mr.
questions?
Chair. Kate
Go
Wells,
ahead.
Chief Assistant City Attorney. I'm here on item number 48. This is a bonus provision agreement for your consideration as it relates to a rezoning that was approved last week under REZ 20-14 for the property located at 2705 North Boulevard. If you will recall, the rezoning allowed for an increase in density by 1 dwelling unit. So the bonus provision agreement requires a payment of $27,556.20. And that amount will be applied to Capital Improvement Project PR 1001221, which covers improvements on East Columbus Drive from North Nebraska Avenue to 14th Street. And those improvements include the reconfiguration of the existing 2-lane undivided roadway and an on-street parking aisle to one side of the roadway. I am available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Wells? Any questions?
I'll move the resolution, 48.
We have a motion to move the resolution from Councilman Dinkfelder, and the second is Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goode,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Petro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a memo from Brad Baird, and I believe he's on the line. If there's any questions, it's a very large amount. Mr. Baird?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good morning, City Council. Brad Baird, Deputy Administrator of Infrastructure. This is a resolution to accept proposals from two contractors for water pipeline and appurtenances construction. And I'm here to answer any questions, and we also have Mr. Gregory Hart as a panelist to answer any questions as well.
Do we have any questions? Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir.
not so much a question as a comment. Week in and week out, we all review these very carefully, especially as related to the WIMBY and the BBE and the and other participation. And in looking at this one, this is actually two different contractors on the same agenda item, which is sort of weird. But anyway, but the Southern company, Southern Underground Industries, Inc., came in at 22% BBE, which I think is just fantastic. And then doing the same exact type of work, JVS Contracting, Inc. came in at 2% BBE. And I had a long conversation with Mr. Baird and then another long conversation with Mr. Hart. And instead of belaboring this, what I'd like to do, because I'm very, very dissatisfied with 2% BBE, even though JVS has 17% total WMBE, the 2% BBE is really unsatisfactory. I think when we went into the PIPES program, all of council agreed that this was a multi-billion-dollar opportunity to not only raise up WMBE, but to raise up BBE and HBE, et cetera. And the 2% I think is unsatisfactory. So staff can comment on it, council can comment on it, but ultimately I'd like to defer this JVS contracting for at least 30 days to see if they might be able to sharpen their pencil and do better on the BBE instead of 2%.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goode.
I was going to pull this item already, but Mr. Dingfelder beat me to the punch. Week in and week out, we talk about contracts. And I'm not understanding if we're asking for RFPs or RFQs. I'm not understanding why there is not a high guideline in that proposal saying shall or must, or you won't be considered for a contract. I'm not understanding that. Week in and week out. So from this day forward, when I see these type of contracts, I just can't be supportive of these type of contracts. But I am going to ask my aide to set up a meeting with Mr. Spearman, Mr. Hart, Legal, and Mr. Shelby to discuss the RFQ process, looking at some different legislation, the ordinance, to make sure we have certain verbiages that are in our city ordinance, so we don't have to be worrying about this every week around. We know where we stand on this issue. And so I'm going to be making sure my aide gets a fourth meeting with those folks so we can look at some future legislation to bring back to council. Won't make a motion today. I want to meet with them first and then probably come back with something to this council as it relates to the RFQ process. I yield back, sir.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? I hear none.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brad, and then I'll chime in. This is Andrea Zellman,
Okay.
Deputy City Attorney. Go ahead, Brad.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that this is a standard bid process. It was neither an RFP or an RFQ process. Now, the following item is an RFQ item that went through the CCNA selection process, but this item is a standard bid where we are awarding to the two lowest responsive bids.
If I may, this is Gregory Hart. Good morning, Gregory Hart, Equal Business Opportunity Program Manager. If I might add some input to Mr. Baird's comments and the question posed by the council members. Just a quick overview. I want to let everyone know that this contract, 20C33, the subcontract goal set for the project was 16%. The 16% is based on disparity guidelines, availability data, etc. It is not an arbitrary target set. Secondly, the goal achievement is 20% overall on a 16% subcontract goal. That means that the goal set versus the goal attainment was 119% of the target in realized WMBE participation overall. The Black business enterprises were awarded 65% of the project of WMBE participation for the contract. The city decided to select 2 contractors to work in tandem on the project. We have exceeded the goal in which 65% of the subcontract participation overall will be Black business enterprise. The program is a W, woman-owned, it's a Hispanic-owned, it's a Black-owned, it's an Asian-owned, it's a Native American-owned program. And we're celebrating the outcome of this project. And I would hope that the listeners and the council would also see that. The participation by BBEs is celebratory. It's fantastic. So I just wanted to add that bit of information. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question and a brief rebuttal. Mr. Hart, Mr. Hart, just one quick question, okay? And tell me if I'm reading it wrong. JVS Contracting Inc. by itself will get a contract for $6.9 million, and they only have 2% BBE. Yes or no?
Yes, but they achieved the goal with a total of 17%. It's an all-inclusive goal.
I heard you. Okay. So here's the game. So now we're going to lump a really great response from Southern Underground, okay, with a very poor response from JVS, put it in the same agenda item, and pat ourselves on the back. Okay, I mean, with all due respect, I love these guys. I love Brad. I love Mr. Hart. We've been working together for years, but that's what I'm seeing, and that's not satisfactory to me. I'm not looking to kill this today. My motion, and if you want to accept it, Mr. Chairman, is to accept the bid of Southern Underground Industries and to defer JVS Contracting for 1 month and bring it back to council in a month.
All right,
Gentlemen, I know where you're coming from. You have legal concerns about all this, and I respect that greatly. I am not rejecting JVS Contracting by any means. I'm just deferring it so we can all scratch our heads and look at this together, and JVS can look at it and come back to us in 30 days. There's no harm, no foul on that.
Thank you, Mr. Dingfelder. This is Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. My concern, and I would ask either Brad or or Greg to address this, is whether they can be separated and whether the delay would create any issues with regard to the project. So I think it's critical that we know the answer to those questions.
Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, may I interrupt for a minute?
Go ahead, sir.
On purely a technical agenda management standpoint, these items are linked together under one resolution, under one item number on the agenda. So a motion that would be in order would be to defer this resolution to a future date, which would, by definition, it appears, affect both contracts with both proposals. I just want to bring that to you from a purely logistical, technical standpoint.
And I don't know why they were bound together to start with. That's really, really unusual.
And that may be a subject, sir, in and of itself, that may be a valid subject. And I think you've raised that.
This is Brad Baird again. I'll address that subject and that question. The reason that two contractors were tied together is because of the workload out there throughout our water service area. We have enough work, more than enough work, for both of these contractors to accomplish. As you see in the press releases that come out every day, we have no shortage of water main breaks and issues with our aging system. And these are two repair contractors that we have high demand for. So delaying them by a month will impact our ability to respond.
And could they have been brought to council as two separate agenda items like we usually see?
No, it was one bid, and we proceeded with award for the top two based on the demand for the work.
I don't know. I guess I respectfully disagree. I think they could have been brought separately, but.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Good.
again, this needs to go back, sir. I just, my keen old police officer mind just goes when I see the shit that Wimby, and I just don't know if we vet these companies to where we're seeing who their subcontractors with, who are they related to, or if they are related or not, to see if the game is being played. And I think what I'm seeing here, the game is being played here. I could be wrong, but I think it's due for discussion later on, or how we divvy out these contracts and how it's connected to these prime contractors and so forth, to make sure we're not playing that kind of game. So for me, I think we put this all together. And I think that, to me, that's what's happening. So again, I would ask that this be deferred. If Mr. Dingfelder puts that motion on the floor, I'll be supportive of it.
Mr. Chair, this is Carlson.
Councilman Carlson.
The community is asking us and has been asking us over and over again to outright reject contracts that don't meet the MBA criteria. And I think postponing for 30 days is a fair compromise. The feedback I've been getting in the community is they'd rather us just reject them completely. But we have to, we've delayed listening to the community for months, asking for these numbers to be raised, and they haven't been. So I think postponing it is fair. Thank you.
What about October 15th? I believe October 15th is not really 30 days, but it's not so far away. But you can't separate them. Is that correct? So it would have to be, both contracts would have to be continued, the item as a whole?
That would be my motion, Mr. Chairman. Based on the advice of council, we shouldn't be splitting it up because it's one agenda item and one resolution. With apologies to Southern Underground, who I think did a really good job, especially on the BBE. I'm going to move to continue item 49 until the October 15th regular meeting under
staff reports.
Staff reports and unfinished
All right.
business.
We have a motion from Councilman. We have a second from Councilman Carlson. Let's get a roll call vote because it is a very large amount.
Vieira
Vieira was having trouble logging back into the meeting, and he's still trying to.
Okay, Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yeah.
Carlson,
Yes.
Petro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote.
Okay. Next item is item number 50. It's an $8 million contract, and we have another memo from Brad Baird, and he is on the line.
Brad Baird.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to cut to the chase on this one. this was a negotiated contract. My concern, again, is the exact same concern I had before. That when I look at the background documents, and Brad, you guys working with Greg are doing a great job giving us the information. This is 34% WMBE. Okay, that's great. It's Westra Construction, 34% WMBE, but it's only 3.5% Hispanic and 0% BBE. So without belaboring it, I'd like to move to continue this item. And Brad, I'm sorry to cut you out. If you have anything you want to add, you can. But I'd like to move to continue this item to October 15th based upon the same discussion we just had on item 49.
Before we do that, Mr. Baird, do you have any response to that?
I do. So I just want to point out that this item is for phase 1 design services for a total estimated design and construction contract that we would come back later with the construction part of about $50 million. So this is, again, this is designed for plans and specifications, permitting, maintenance of traffic, and delivering a guaranteed maximum price proposal, which we would come back to you for. And at that time, we would sit down with the Westra team. Mr. Hart and I will sit down with them, and our teams will sit down with them to, determine what the opportunities are and work with this team to maximize WMBE participation. So again, this is the design phase, and they have well exceeded what their commitment they made at the Consultants Competitive Negotiations Act presentations. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, again, with all due respect to Mr. Baird, who does a great job day in and day out and works 100 hours a week. But with all due respect, the bottom line is, again, this is the design part. So are we sending a message to the community that we don't believe that there's a Black business out there, or hardly any Hispanic business, or zero Asian business that could help with the design part of this? This is not chicken feed. This is $8 million of design work. And we need to bring up professionals, and not just ditch diggers. We need to bring up professionals in the minority communities as well. And the way we do that is through these contracts. So again, my motion is not to deny this. My motion is to let it breathe for 30 days and continue it till October 15th.
All right, sounds good. We have a motion from Council.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. The only thing I would suggest to council, that you've certainly made the purchasing and contracting departments aware of your concerns. I think they understand that. They've also spoken to you about the difficulty in meeting these numbers sometimes. If the goal is to sit down and talk with them about more effective ways to do that, that can certainly be done. But I would suggest that council not delay projects in the city that need to get underway to serve the public. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I respect Ms. Zellman's comments to the utmost in the legal team, but we have to set a point, and at some point when we're going to set it. There are a lot of minority businesses that don't get an opportunity, but if they do get an opportunity, you can say, hey, they're not working to those goals and they see opportunities. I keep hearing we're trying, but what I don't understand, if you're saying this is the goal, before I put a contract in, I already know what the expectation is. So it don't need me putting a bid in it if I already know I can't meet that expectation. Somebody's hungry. Someone's going to say, finally, I'm going to meet that expectation, because that's what the goal is. That's what the proposal is. And to me, it goes back to us not putting in or setting a strong tone and saying, this is what we're looking for. So I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair. Charles. I think, Ms. Zellman, I think that the issue is not between city council and purchasing. I think it's between the community and purchasing. I know that the mayor and chief of staff and administration are trying hard at all of this.
but the community is very, very frustrated. And the community, I've had lots of conversations. Folks are calling me, and the folks who want business and are frustrated by it, they're the experts on what the gaps are, and they're very frustrated in particular that they're not able to get professional business. And they say that there are businesses that are qualified that either don't get called because they're on a short list, or if they're on a short list, they don't get called. And I think that there has to be a deeper conversation with the community to try to figure this problem out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right, we have
Mr. Chair. Oh, this is Vera, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. As you know, I've been texting Mr. Chair the last about 10 or 12 minutes. I've been off and on. I don't know what I have the weirdest connection. I'm going to try to, I haven't been here for a lot of this discussion. Trying to get back on. Just FYI, I'll vote with the information that I have, but just for the record, we've been texting on this, but just for the record.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, one last comment to Ms. Zellman, in response to Ms. Zellman, and of course I respect Andrea tremendously as well. This discussion has been going on ever since last year when we passed pipes, and I suggested to Chief Staff Bennett yesterday that Mr. Hart and Mr. Baird don't have enough staff on the pipes program to jump in and take a deeper dive on every single one of these multi-million-dollar contracts. Because the way I look at our role is sort of as a matchmaker. And we need to do a better job of helping those big GCs find those small minority companies and hook the two of them up together. In Yiddish, it's an expression called a shidduch, but we that just means to matchmake, and we need to do a better job of matchmaking. And frankly, I think that might take some additional personnel. Mr. Bennett seemed reasonably inclined to that. Look into that, whether or not that's contract personnel or new staff. Might need to be contract personnel in light of our COVID constraints. But I believe the $3.5 billion pipes program can afford that type of investment. So anyway, that's a big picture thing. In the short term, let's see how we do over the next 20 something days and bring this back on the 15th. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Councilman Goods.
There's nobody else, sir. I had a meeting yesterday. I was called to the Empowerment Center in the community, NAACP, and they talked about this issue. They've got some extra staff there and asking to be a part to help channel these minority vendors and so forth to the city, because I know that Mr. Hart is short-staffed. Mr. Dingfelder made a perfect point. He doesn't have enough staff to try to make all these calls and find all these minority vendors. So we're just going off who we've done business with, who we've always relied on. So I think we need to look at that, look at some of these outsourced places that can provide some of these minority businesses to our contract services, to Mr. Beard and to Mr. Hart to help them out. And I think that might be some of the problem as well. So again, it's a bigger conversation, but eventually we've got to come to a resolution, because the community keeps saying, that we are a diverse council. We want everyone in the city to be, not to be hungry, to be able to eat. So we've got to do our due diligence to make some of these things come to fruition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second to continue this to October 15th? This is item number 50. We have a second from Councilman Carlson. Let's just have a roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Mr. Chairman, before I vote yes, which I will, I just want to put something on the record. What happens in 30 days when we come back around October 15th, and for some reason or another, and I'm just throwing this out as a speculative thing, that these goals that we're trying to reach go down, what happens then?
Who would like to answer that?
Mr. Chairman, I respond, we tried.
Okay, I just want to know. That's all. Thank you. I vote yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. We now go to item number 51.
And thank you, council, for both 49 and 50.
You're welcome. Item number
And
51.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I apologize for missing I apologize for missing 49. I was having technical difficulties, but my wonderful legislative aides filled me in for number 50 before we voted. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of council.
Thank you very much.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chairman,
Item 51, are you ready?
wait a minute. Did Mr. Shelby chime in? Mr. Shelby?
No, I think staff's going to make the presentation. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware of the substitute. That's all. But the staff,
Yes.
Whoever's present can speak to it, I'm sure.
Okay, item number 51.
Good morning, Chair and Council. This is Carol Post, Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. I have a few slides being pulled up that will better illustrate this project. I want to just note that I'm speaking on behalf of Vanessa McCleary, who was really responsible and should get the credit for this project. She is currently on a statewide call with officers from HUD, so I'll be happy to carry her torch this morning. Just to brief you all quickly on a project that I think represents another step in our march to address housing affordability across the community. Next slide, please. If you recall, Vanessa and myself, all right, so summary of item number 51. We'll come back to that. Next slide. If you recall, on August 27th, Vanessa and I presented a pretty comprehensive update on the mayor's housing initiatives, progress to date, and initiatives that were in front of us. In fact, this resolution addresses one item that was on part of that presentation. It's a housing project that will be coming online in the next year. I'd like to note, though, that as I said, this is one step amongst many. In fact, today there were 3 items on the agenda that will positively impact our ability to address housing affordability. The first was part of the consent agenda, item number 3, the utility fee ordinance. And within that ordinance and all that it impacts around water and wastewater fees, as had been previously presented, there is a component that provides for developments and projects that qualify as affordable housing will actually have a 0 fee for wastewater and water. And that will be a tremendous opportunity to drive down the costs of developing affordable housing. That will become effective March 1st of 2021, but we'll be working between now and then to programmatically integrate that into our systems and be sure that we are making that very visible to our development community across the private sector and help drive and influence the development of affordable housing. In addition, there is an item shortly after this presentation around a land acquisition that will be yet another opportunity for the city to help drive affordable housing production. For this item pertains to housing unit production. As you know, we are on a march to drive 10,000 units by 2027, and this will take us part of the way there. So next slide, please. Actually, you can skip forward. This is the Madison Heights project. Here's a quick project summary. This will bring 102 apartment units. It's a 6-story project. It is targeted for the affordable elderly. That is a term of art that's defined qualifying group. This is a low-income housing tax credit development. I'll speak about that in a moment. You can see the developer and the operations lead for the project. Half of the project will be 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Half will be 2 bed, 2 bath. And the affordability is locked in for a 50-year period. You can see the set-asides there as well. For those who don't have visual, we have 10% set aside at 33% of the AMI, 90% at 60% of the AMI, and 5 of the 33% AMI units are actually designated for special needs persons. Next slide.
The reason this project we think is so important is that it really fills a void, particularly in East Tampa. You can see the location designated here. What the circles represent is a 2-mile, the inner circle is a 2-mile radius, the outer circle is a 5-mile radius. Within that 2-mile radius, there are no other, not a single other FHFC regulated affordable elderly project. And within the 5-mile radius, just 7, as you see them located on that lower left side. So there is definitely a void of having this type of housing available to our elderly citizens. And this will be a great addition to that, to assist the elderly to have affordable housing. And as you see before we'll conclude, this will be a great addition for having some great quality amenities. Next slide. The reason the item is on the agenda today has to do with a land transaction or a loan transaction, and it's based on the FHFC requirement. This all took place a year ago. You see the set out there for the value of the land, the value of the construction costs, and the total development costs for the 102 units. Now, this project is special because it is the FHFC project that qualified for the 9% tax credit. This is the program that we recently agreed to a home and away series, if you will, with the county so that we could better guide and create predictability for our affordable housing developer community. So the city was the awardee in 2019, and this was the project that was specified. And we believe that it was identified for that because of how it filled that gap for elderly living in East Tampa. As part of the FHFC tax credit eligibility, they require that the governing jurisdiction have some skin in the game in the basis of either a contribution of some sort. In this case, the city is making a maximum contribution pursuant to the FHFC guidelines, equating to $625,000 loan. And that loan will be repaid over the course of 20 years with a 3% interest rate. So that is the contribution that's being made, and that is the nature of the agreement that is before the council today for your consideration to approve that loan. Next slide. Just 2 other slides. I won't go into the details, but it just gives you a sense of the configuration design of the building. And the next slide, a wide range of amenities that will be available. And I think we're really seeing how affordable housing has transformed from what folks often think about and is somewhat stigmatized, frankly, into something that can really be a very high quality of life with great amenities. And that's what you're seeing here is what's been proposed for this project. And last slide, the timeline for the project is pursuant to your approval today. It would enable us for the developer to start construction, targeting a C of O later next year, and then project completion by the end of 2021. So that concludes the presentation, and I am happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Quick question.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Carol, thanks so much for pulling this item and making a public presentation. We, as all of us know, we get a lot of questions day in and day out. You know, what is the city doing for affordable housing? And this is a fantastic project as presented. My specific question, Carol, $625,000. It looks like that money perhaps came through the feds as part of the home program, which is all fine and good. When they start paying it back, do we get to keep it and put it into, you know, our own land trust or that sort of thing, or do we have to just pass it back to the feds?
My understanding, it's a great question. My understanding is that that money is allocated to the city. We designated it for this purpose. It was a home fund, so we designated it for this purpose, but it was allocated to the city so that when it is returned and repaid with that small interest, it inures back to the benefit of the city.
So this sounds like a good opportunity for us to in a very small way, because obviously over 30 years or whatever, you know, it won't grow very fast, but just to start our, that land, you know, that land trust or whatever we're going to call it, land banking, land trust money, and start building it. And to the extent we can, you know, we can build it from different directions, we can start accumulating funds that are less dependent on Washington and Tallahassee.
No, great suggestion. I'll confirm with the HCD team whether it's been earmarked for any other purpose, but if not, that's a great suggestion. I'll take that back. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Carlson.
Councilman Goods, Councilman Carlson. Go ahead, Goods.
That kind of led into my question, Mr. Dingfellow. Thank you for bringing that up. Making sure that money's coming back. It has no specific earmarks that you have to follow any federal guidelines per se. If it's our money coming back, we can put that in a special fund saying we need it for rehab. There's no special stipulations. Someone needs a roof. There's no special criteria, you know, AMI. Here it is. This is a program we can utilize. So if you can find out about that information, that would be great. I looked at the map where you pinpoint the property for Hillsborough. Is that south of Hillsborough, north of Hillsborough, where we're talking about putting this in? Exactly, do we have a pinpoint address or some landmarks where I can look at that?
It is literally at Hillsborough. It is at 5315 North 37th Street is the actual address. So it's at 37th and Hillsborough.
Yeah, I thought that was the property. I know the community was having some concerns. We're not getting phone calls returned in reference to what was the proposal, what was going on. I don't know if there's, it's just COVID, if that has stopped, but I think we still need to let the community over there know what's going on, especially Ms. Taylor, who's been calling my office about that property over there. And if it serves my memory correct, that property is behind the auto zone, I believe. So if we can make sure that the community is being updated on what's going on, what's going there, so I don't get bombarded with so many calls, so they can know that this is going to be an elderly type facility for our elderly seniors, and it's just not an apartment complex just going up. That's a concern that they have.
Great suggestion. We will definitely do that. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Post and Mayor, Chief of Staff, and Ms. McCleary for your dedication to housing affordability. You know, we've been hearing, the City Council has been hearing for more than a year about the crisis of as many as 50,000 homes that we have a shortage of. And we've seen how this shortage affects us economically. It hurts our companies because their staff members don't have workforce housing. It hurts transportation because people have to park far out. And there are a lot of issues that we've discussed before, but it's City Council has set this as a high priority, and it's great that you and the mayor and Ms. McCleary have been able to move forward on this, and in particular that you're diversifying the investment base with getting new private sector investors, which was another criticism in the past, that private sector investors were turned down. So thank you for widening that field and for trying to solve this important problem.
Thank you very much. Are there any other council members with questions or comments at this time? Who would like to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
And this is Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. I just want to make sure that you adopt the substitute resolution. The resolution has not changed. There was a change to the scope of work that was an attachment to it.
Okay, Councilman Dingfelder, are you moving the substitute resolution?
Yes, sir. You read my mind.
Yes, sir. And Councilman Miranda with the second. If I can get a roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Bistro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
We now go to item number 52.
Good morning, Chair Maniscalco and City Council and the listening public. Michelle Van Loan, CRA Director. We are here this morning to show our alignment and support for the city's initiatives in housing that Carol Post just so thoroughly covered about the importance of our goals and the need for affordable and workforce housing in our community and in the city. The downtown CRA is now in a position to further our commitment to our housing needs by acquiring a parcel of land in Northwest Downtown CRA. Items number 52 and 53 are joint resolutions for the acquisition of that property. We have Rob Rosner with us, the downtown CRA manager, and he has a few slides that he'd like to go over with you to show you the location of the property and to put some context into this acquisition for you on council and for the viewing public. Rob?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Can I have next slide, please? So the motion today is to purchase for $4.5 million, 1312 North Tampa Street for the use of affordable housing, workforce housing, and other goals that have been set up by the downtown CRA in alignment with the affordable housing initiatives that we have. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Let's start out with the opportunity. So, I'm sorry, previous slide. My screen must be going a little slower. My apologies. We wanted to talk first about the opportunity. This is an excellent alignment with the city's affordable housing initiatives. We also have a strong need for workforce housing. That's been a strong demand for the past few years and more so over the past year. This site has been underutilized for the past 20 years. And the availability of the site is for sale now. Next slide, please. We went through a process with our CAC. In 2019, we talked to the CAC and they endorsed up to $5 million to acquire the downtown land for workforce and affordable housing opportunities. With that, we looked at multiple options that were out there. We learned of the availability of the site in late 2019, but it was already under contract. Up until recently, it was under contract by another party, and last week it became available after their due diligence period had ended. Next slide, please. The benefits we see is that this lines very well with a number of our other goals, which is our mobility goals for transportation. The proximity to downtown is a major employment center, and there's a lot of demand for this area for parking, which we've done previous projects such as the Scott Street parking lot and a number of other improvements in the area. This is ideal as a transit-oriented development due to it being directly adjacent to the future streetcar alignment that's going to be going down Tampa and up Florida, as you can see in this attached graphic. We put a star to give a reference to it. There will be a station directly across the street. And then this also has a great connection to the Hart Marion Transit Center, which is only about 2 or 3 blocks away, which makes it very walkable. With that, I'll conclude my presentation and take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, point of privilege.
Councilman Goods.
I need a point of clarity. I'm looking at item 52 and 53, but I also have another agenda for the CRA that has the same verbiage. So can I get some clarity on why we council?
Yes, sir. Michelle Van Loan. Our process normally is that we go to the CAC to get permission to reprogram the money, and that process has been accomplished, as Rob mentioned. Then we would go to the CRA board and for reprogramming of the money, and then we would go to council to do the fiscal resolution to reprogram that money and also resolution to approve the contract. This morning, instead of interrupting the beginning of the meeting and delaying public comment, and due to the shortness of the special call meeting for the CRA meeting is happening after this council meeting is over. And the purpose of that is so that CRA board can officially reprogram the money in order to make this acquisition happen.
Thank you, Ms. Van Loan.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Any other questions?
yes, sir.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know who's controlling the slides. Can you go back to the slide, and Rob, maybe you can help us, the slide that has the, that slide. What? Yeah, no. Okay, the next one. The
last one?
Go back one. There. No. The one that shows the overall area and what's around this project. No.
It's the last line. Yes,
No.
that's the correct slide.
No.
Yes, sir. How can I answer your question?
Okay, the slide I'm looking for is the one that shows who are the adjacent neighbors in terms of ownership of property. What, in other words, what's surrounding this parcel? And that's question one. And so I need a different slide.
Next slide, please. So this slide shows the overall downtown map.
No, it's not that one, Rob. It's the other one that's colorful.
Two slides.
This is
Two slides.
this is Morris Massey. I think he's looking for the aerial slide, Rob.
Yeah,
There.
I think so. That's Eric. 2 slides, please. Out of the 5 slides, slide number 3.
There we go. Stop.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there was a little bit of confusion about the size of the actual parcel that we're buying, potentially buying for $4.5 million. The cost per square footage, per square foot. I read the appraisals report, and then I think there was an amended appraisals report. Some people in the community were saying, how can we spend this much money on this, ragged old building, that sort of thing. And I think you need to go, it's a $4.5 million purchase. I think you need to briefly address the appraisal, the cost per square foot, and how big is this actual parcel, and who are the surrounding neighbors there? What are we looking at?
Councilman, I'll start with the first part and then I'll let Rob identify all the adjacent parcels. So with the difference in the 2 different appraisals, both of them came out with $150 a square foot cost. The difference is that one appraiser took the square footage off of the property appraiser's office, and the second appraiser went out and did their own field survey work. Our real estate department did have our surveyor go out to do a final survey so that we do know the exact square footage of the parcel. The difference between the 2 appraisals regarding the square footage was a relatively small amount, and we will get that final exact survey from Lucky, but the actual sale price is not based on, paying an actual per square foot price. The appraisals are telling us what the market rate they feel should bear for this property as a square foot price to know if or if not we are in that right zone. So the actual sale price would be the 4.5 million plus the closing costs. And we will have that slight discrepancy between the 2 appraisals wrapped up either by the end of next week or early the following week by our appraiser. And I will also let Rob talk to what's adjacent and what's in the area based on what you can see in this aerial.
Thank you.
Good morning, this is Rob Rosner again. So we have to the south of us is the Royal Street.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I want to approach Ms. Vallon. Let me ask this question. I'm hearing market price. I'm hearing survey. So we're not negotiating the price. We're not negotiate. You say, okay. How do you know?
Do I have real estate on the call to talk about our process for working with the seller?
Yes, good morning. This is Monica Ammon from the Real Estate Division.
Somebody's getting feedback.
We have real estate on the line, Ms. Vallon?
Yes, I'm on the line.
I need somebody to explain to me how we negotiate because I'm a businessman. I negotiate. I just don't say, well, this is what I believe it is. I'm just going to give you. So how do we negotiate? What's the process?
Our typical acquisition for any real estate in the city is that we obtain an appraisal so that the city is protected from paying above market value on our acquisitions. In this particular case, we acquired 2 appraisals and they both came in very close to each other. The property had been under contract with another party and we deliberately waited for that contract to fall apart before we started talking with the owners who were out of state on this matter. And we made an offer to them and we negotiated to this price.
Monica, do we get any information on how much the prior contract was?
We had heard some rumors on the street, but no, we did not have direct access to the information.
Well, what were the rumors?
Well, they were pretty close to the number that we came in at. They were just slightly higher than our original first offer.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, before we continue,
Well, Rob was going to point out what some of the other, oh God, we lost this slide.
Can you put it back up, please? Thank you.
Rob was going to point out just quickly what I know the state building is across the street, I guess, with all that parking.
Correct.
What else is to the north and south?
Okay, let's just go clockwise. So at 3 o'clock, you have the state building that you just mentioned. At about 5 o'clock, there's a new property that's going to be building townhomes there that's called the Fortune Townhomes. That's been permitted, and we've worked with them for doing some work there. Then at around 7 o'clock here is the city's parcel directly south of the property, is the Royal Street parking lot. At the 9 o'clock position is the right of way for FDOT in the city and the extension of the Ashley Street Drive, because this is the approach ramp to get on and off at Ashley. And then due north, we have a site that's a billboard site, and then we have Laurel Street, and then the city owns the lot north of that. And then FDOT at the 1 o'clock position owns all the parking lot out there for future transit. Their plans have changed because they had a plan for multimodal site that was on that site and to the east. And we're actually using the Scott Street parking lot until they make up their mind what they wanted to do. So DOT had bought all that land that's just south of Scott Street, east of Tampa. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else? All right, can I get a motion to move the resolution for item number 52?
So moved.
Second, Miranda.
Councilman Goods with a motion, second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Viera,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item number 53, which is part 2 of part 1. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Can I get a motion to move the resolution for item number 53?
So move, Citro.
Motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Viera,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
carried unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 54, we've already done. FDOT did their presentation. item number 55, the Mobility Department did have a memo here sent from Milton Martinez, our Chief Transportation Engineer. Is there any questions, anything else on item number 55 beyond the memo?
Are they on the line now, Mr. Chairman?
Do we have Milton Martinez on the line or anybody from the Transportation or the Mobility Department?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Vic Bide, Director, Mobility Department.
I know we have a memo, Mr. Chairman, but the public has been calling about this. So if Vic is on the line, he can just give a little brief thing. So if anybody's listening or want to watch it later on, they'll know exactly what's going on in Hillsborough Avenue.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Just this morning, we reached out to the FDOT project manager as well, who has assured me that they're going to monitor this project closely and pay attention to some of the concerns from the community. This is an FDOT project, active project, and the staff report does reflect that. And we work closely with FDOT. So we will address and monitor any concerns from the community on this.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Hearing none, thank you very much. That concludes item number 55. Go to item number 56.
Brad Baird, hello, Mr. Chair, City Council again. I'm going to attempt to unravel a little bit of confusion on this item, if I may. Thank you. This item actually is not the 6-month report for the PIPES program. Mr. Hart and I gave that report in May 7th, a couple months ago. And the next report for that is due in November. I believe that would be November 5th. Again, that's the PIPES report, and in particular the WMBE and SLBE participation on all of the PIPES projects. But this traces back to a December 5th report under staff reports that I gave to council regarding one particular project. And that project is a $13.2 million design build project for the San Carlos pumping station rehabilitation. And the motion before that report, if I could read it, Mr. Chair, was that, thank you, city staff be requested to appear before council on December 5th, 2019 under staff reports and unfinished business to provide a report regarding the progress concerning WMBE on this contract, pertaining to how this company is doing on the 20% goal pertaining to said project. So Mr. Hart is prepared to give an update on how Garney Companies is doing on this contract, which we are about halfway through the construction on. However, we would respectfully ask that you roll up this motion and this report into the PIPES report that we give semi-annually. And I believe actually this comes back to you in March, I forget the date on that, to just report on this particular project. So we would ask that you align these two or roll up this one into the PIPES report.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, I know this was Maniscalco's secret motion originally, but I think the other motion might have been mine. So I'm totally fine with bundling them together and letting staff come back with a total comprehensive WMBE PIPES report in November and then May of each year. I just wanted to get confirmation from the clerk that is that a standing motion, the November and May PIPES reports, or Brad, if you've seen it, you could answer as well.
Yeah, so this, that motion for the semi-annual report was made on September 5th, 2019, associated with the approval of the entire PIPES program. And then this report was given in December of 2019.
Well, my question is, I just want to make sure it's a standing motion that will live in perpetuity as long as Pipes lives.
It is a standing motion, and I have it here. It says, if I may read it, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Staff to appear and provide a report to council every 6 months for as long as the rate hike is in place regarding the progress of construction, and also a report on the WMBE progress. And this was one of the many motions made on September 5th.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm comfortable striking item 56 and eliminating it from from our future agendas. I think it's duplicative of what we're already doing in November and May.
All right, sounds good. So you just want to include that in that in the future and just tie it all together so it's not repetitive and just to keep it moving, correct?
Right, that's the intent of the motion. We can strike this one not only for today, but in the future.
Is that a motion then, sir? A motion?
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Councilman Goods. I don't believe that this needs a roll call vote. So is there any objection? Any objection? All right, hearing none by unanimous consent because there was no objection, Councilman Dingfelder's motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes the agenda. We'll go to information reports and new business by council members. Councilman Vieira, do you have anything today, sir?
Yes, sir, I do. Let me find my notes if I may. May we have the person that goes after me go and then I go if I may, Mr. Chair?
Councilman Goods, do you have anything for new business today?
Yes, sir. I previously kind of talked to Mr. McCleary about this subject. I'd like to make a motion that the legal department and the housing division come back and give a full report in person, probably virtual, in regards to the Willie Dixon Coach Foundation situation regarding these 8 homes. I know council received several emails in reference to some type of situation that went on with this project and so forth and so on. So I'd just like to have a clear update because the community keeps calling me as well, saying that we did something improperly to this foundation. So I want to make sure that we've done all we need to do and that everyone is was properly compensated if that was the case, or what do we need to do to rectify this situation. So if I can get a second to have again, legal and housing come back and give us a report on the Coach Foundation, Mr. Willie Dixon.
What day? What do you have?
I think I don't have that sheet. Mr. Shelby, what's the first available date we have? Any date would be fine. I know they need some time to gather the information, so I would say within 30 days.
Why don't you, do you want to ask Ms. Zellman, who's on the line, how long they need to do that to come back?
Ms. Zellman?
I'm sorry, Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. I think 60 days should be sufficient for us to be able to report back to you.
That'd be fine. That'd be fine. What do you have for that? I don't have my sheet from Mr. Shelby. What do you have for us?
Would that be then November, September, October, November? You have the November 19th date. Or you have
available? That's available. That'd be fine.
All right, November 19th.
Staff report, yes, sir. Okay.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Goods. Do we have a second?
Second, Citro.
We have a second from Councilman Citro. Is there any objection? Hearing none. By unanimous consent without objection, the motion passes. Anything else, Councilman Goods?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dingfelder, do you have anything today under new business?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, and we'll go back to Vieira after Councilman Dingfelder.
Okay, 2 items. One is just internal. Item 10 on our agenda today. Ms. Zellman and I have corresponded on this briefly. This was sort of an after the fact approval of an emergency purchase order for, no, actually it wasn't item 10, it was a different item. But anyway, the convention center needed to do an emergency purchase order, and we approved it. And I asked Ms. Zellman, I said, do we have a process in place in terms of an ordinance and that sort of thing? And we went back and forth on it a little bit. So I'd like to sort of flesh this out a little bit in 60 days from now, ask legal to come back with a report on that issue of do we need to address or amend any ordinances or other provisions as related to, city council approving after the fact purchase orders. Let me make it clear, I have no problem with the emergency situation and the response of the administration and Ms. Garvey in doing what they did, but it appears to me we don't really have a codified process for it. So that would just be a motion. I don't know, Mr. Shelby, you got any ideas?
November 19th.
November 19th.
Well, right now, December 3rd, if this is really not pressing, December 3rd is wide open right now.
Okay, December 3rd.
Yeah.
December 3rd is fine under staff reports.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Goods. Any objection? Hearing none by unanimous consent, Councilman Dingfelder's motion passes for the December 3rd meeting under staff reports.
Thank you. And the second one is an external one. I might need Mr. Shelby's assistance on this. I think we've all read in the paper and online that Pinellas County is considering eliminating their requirement for masks. And on a personal level and a scientific level, because I do have 2 science degrees before I went to law school, I think that's really contrary to the science. As a matter of fact, more importantly, I'm reading an article here. Dr. Jameson, the medical director for Pinellas County Emergency Medical Services, warns that the county commission should not do this. He says the proponents of the data studies, expert opinion out there still supports that masks are a valuable tool in slowing and helping to prevent the spread of the virus. Now, we've recognized that in the city of Tampa, and I believe Hillsborough County is still on board with that. But the problem is now we're a region. We're a region where people travel across the bridge and they go to work and they go shopping. And we're not just one county separated by another county. We are a region. And as such, Mr. Shelby, what I'd like to do is have council either do a vote and a resolution, urging Pinellas County. I don't even know if it has to be in writing. It's up to you. Urging Pinellas County to stay the course and continue to require masks until, as a region, we all decide that the threat is eliminated, and that might be, when there's a vaccine. We don't know, but right now I think it's premature to be eliminating masks for any jurisdiction in this region.
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
And by the way, this is totally in support of Mayor Castor's position on the same matter.
And Vera seconds, if I may.
Shelby?
Yes, if we can, just flesh out the motion or the intention so we can get direction. Well, I would think that Mayor Castor, herself personally, or her staff has been in touch with Mayor Kreisman and his staff relative to this item. What I think the intention of Councilman Dingfelder's motion is to show City Council's position and to add City Council support to that position. The quickest way to do it would be in the form of a letter at the direction of council, based on the vote of council, by the chair, to the chair and members of the Pinellas County Commission, reiterating that position and perhaps even coordinating with the mayor's office as the best way to be able to frame that. So if it were a letter, it could probably be done sooner. If it were a vote, the only thing you'd have it in is in the action summary and eventually the minutes. So if you want a memorialization of it, my recommendation to act quickly would be to be a letter. If you wanted it to come back at a future agenda, it could be a resolution, but this seems like a very time-sensitive matter.
So, Mr. Shelby, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I'll just suggest, subject to Mr. Shelby's opinion, I would like us to vote and delegate and request that the chairman write that letter and hopefully have the unanimous support of City Council in writing that letter. And Mr. Shelby and any staff could obviously help in the drafting of that letter.
Certainly happy to do that.
So that's
All
my
right.
motion.
We have a second from Councilman Vieira. And I'm happy to write that letter. I do have an English degree and I won the spelling bee in the 8th grade. So all this helps. All right, is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Thank you, Councilman Dingfelder. We now go back to Councilman Vieira for new business. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, sir. I motion to give Councilman Maniscalco a city council commendation for winning the 8th grade spelling bee. No, I'm joking. A couple of
back in my office.
It's better late than never, right? Just a couple of things, if I may, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I motion for city staff to look into incorporating and recognizing or incorporating a public recognition of Shirley Reisler somewhere in the Forest Hills Recreation Center, i.e. the building renaming, room renaming, a plaque. Shirley is retiring from Parks and Recreation after 42 years of service with the city, 34 of those serving folks at the Forest Hills Recreation Center, and further that said report be brought before council at a regular city council meeting on November 5th. A report is fine.
Wait, November 5th? All right.
Yes, sir.
We have a second from Councilman Citro. Any discussion, comments, anybody? All right, here, any objection? Hearing no objection, by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Anything else, Councilman Vieira?
Yes, sir. Just two really quickly, if I may. A motion for commendation for brothers Zach and Tim Zelliff, who won first place at the state finals in the 2019 recently National History Day project on Lieutenant Baldomero Lopez, and that said commendation be awarded off-site at the Veterans Memorial Park on October 10th.
Second, Citro.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Citro. Any objection? By unanimous consent, the motion passes. Anything else, Councilman Vieira?
Yes, sir. I've recently been involved with residents over in the Timber Falls apartments over in the North Tampa area off 113th Street, getting the city and the county involved. There was a wonderful article, a troubling article, I should say, in the Tampa Bay Times on the welfare and well-being of those residents that just, really got to me. And I've been involved with the property owners and hoping that they, do better. We have a follow-up meeting set with them. I believe it is next week. I went out and met with the residents with Carol Post and good folks from code enforcement and others. Will be going back in about 2 weeks. But, this kind of brings up a larger issue. And I want a motion for city staff and Housing and Community Development Division under the Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity to present a live report before council on October 22nd workshop. And I've already cleared this date with them and whatnot, to discuss how the City of Tampa is working with key resource and data partners, such as Tampa Homeless, the county, the clerk's office, et cetera, 211, and helping to connect renters struggling with evictions to resources, especially in the wake of COVID-19, and what resources city council members have in assisting apartment renters who are behind for COVID. Or strike that, behind in their rent due to COVID-related issues. What can we as a city and as council members do to help these folks? I'm not going to include code enforcement. With a lot of these properties, code enforcement is a big issue. I may amend that later on, but I haven't cleared it with them, so I'll just leave my motion at that if I may.
Okay, motion from Councilman Vieira. Do we have a second?
Second, Citro.
Second from Councilman Citro.
Mr. Chair, before you take your vote, I just want to thank Mr. Vieira on his efforts. I'm really familiar with Timber Falls. That was the first apartment I had up there on 113th when I first became a police officer in the City of Tampa. So I'm very familiar with that apartment complex, and I'm sorry to hear about what's going on there. But thank you for your leadership on it, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you, Councilman Goods. Thank you, sir.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Anything else, Councilman Vieira?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Carlson?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just a couple quick comments. My colleagues will know that with our vote last night, there were a lot of very upset people, disappointed in the vote and also disappointed in the direction that things went. I was on the phone till at least midnight last night and starting early this morning, receiving calls from some of the people who spoke out and calling some of them. I would just ask, I'm sure you all are doing this, but I would just ask of my colleagues that you all reach out and talk to as many folks as possible and hopefully give hope that we're going to be continuing to address this rights issues. I think that there's not a high awareness of the things that we've been doing over the last year and a half, and we need to make sure people know that, but we need to enlist their help in the issues that we need to face going forward. Hopefully we'll build bridges, and as we listen to all the different voices in the community. One thing in particular that folks continue to want is some kind of separate mental health program. And I'm not going to make any motions today. I just would ask everybody to continue to think about this and for the administration to continue to think about it. It was Councilman Dingfelder's proposal, but there's still a high interest in that. And I think we need to continue to evaluate it, talk to staff, and try to figure out how to make some kind of proposal on that. Also, months ago when the protest started, we asked that the police department communicate with neighborhood associations and residents to talk to them about what do you do when protests come through your neighborhood? Should you take out food and water, or should you stay in your house? And I think that there's still no awareness of what to do. I'm getting lots of calls from people wondering what the protocol is, what they should be doing. And I presume that the police and the city have been advising the protesters on what they can and can't do. But I think we should make sure that somebody is advising neighborhood leaders and also residents throughout the community as to what to do and what not to do. And without mentioning any specific cases, I think in particular we have to let people know that it's not acceptable to commit crimes and it's not acceptable to run over pedestrians. So we need to make some strong statements, and if the police advise us to pass any additional ordinances, we could do that. Additionally, next week we have a really big day. We have a discussion about regulating the police, and we also have the discussion about the Citizen Review Board. And I think those are both topics that we can hear from everyone in the community, but in particular we should listen to the folks who spoke out last night. I'm sure they'll be back. On the Citizen Review Board, the legal department is going to be briefing all of us if you haven't been briefed already. But the ACLU and Tampa for Justice have worked hard on a red line that I think they've suggested to everyone. And if you have questions, I would ask please that you reach out to one or both of those organizations. They'd be happy to brief you because it's obvious that we need to continue to push reform. So thank you all, and I appreciate it, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilman Citro, do you have anything, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one. I move to remove the commendations from the Police Officer of the Month and the Firefighter of the Quarter on September 24th's agenda due to the COVID crisis, and ask the Chief of Staff's office to work with council on scheduling presentations of these commendations and others that have been delayed due to COVID-19 with the appropriate and deserved distinction and decorum.
Chair?
All right, we have
Chair? I would love to help move that, but I also would indicate that we also have our citizen employees who've been working very hard during these times. I think that should be added to the motion if he were to amend that.
Councilman Citro.
I'm sorry, Councilman Goose, I didn't quite hear that.
I'm joyful about the motion, but I would also like, if you could have a friendly amendment to add our citizens employees as well. They've been working just as hard out here in these COVID situations, doing the extra road closures, dealing with a lot of other issues as well. So if you could give a friendly, accept my friendly amendment, we appreciate it.
Mr. Gooch, without a doubt, the ATU also, our employees also need those recognition. And again, with the decorum, I'm hoping that the Chief of Staff's office is going to give us room at the convention center so that we can do these things and make sure that we are caught up on the recognition that the employees, the fire department, and EPD deserve.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. We have a motion from Councilman Citro with a second from Councilman Goods. Is that correct?
Okay, very good. And as of now, sir,
Mr. Chairman, sir, is he accepting the friendly motion, sir, amendment?
Of course, Councilman Goods, yes, of course. Of course.
Second. Thank you, sir. Second motion.
Question on the motion?
Councilman Dingfelder.
What was the date? Did you have a specific date, Mr. Citro?
Councilman Dingfelder, I'm asking for the Chief of Staff's office to work with on that. And as soon as that date is reached, I will inform all city council member and legal.
Okay, so you're just looking for a report back from staff on when and where and how we could do this?
Specifically, the Chief of Staff. Yes, sir.
Oh, my God.
All right, I guess I'll ask my questions when they come back. And when are they coming back with this report?
Right now, I have been in talks with the Chief of Staff, hopefully within a week or by our next meeting.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion from Councilman Citro with a second from Councilman Goods with a friendly amendment there. Any objection? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Is there anything else, Councilman Citro?
Just briefly, a statement, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I wish to thank the city staff, particularly Parks and Recreation, Miss Vicky Pallier, who we all know as a strong advocate for her community. The fountain at Fred Ball Park was named in her honor. And again, thank you to all of city staff for their help in that. Nothing else, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman Miranda, do you have anything at this time, sir?
Nothing, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Vera. May I very quickly? I apologize. I appreciate it. You know, the budget was brought up, and there's something I want to encourage council members to also do to build on Councilman Carlson's remarks as well. With a different section of the budget is to promote, because, you know, a lot of the things we read right now about the budget are on the police issue, and that is a big issue, obviously, that has required a great deal of attention. But I would also respectfully urge council members to talk to constituents about the many wonderful things that this budget does in our community. Core critical improvements in areas such as East Tampa, $18 million worth of recreational improvements throughout East Tampa, an all abilities autism park in U Tampa, improvements for the Forest Hills Rec Center, numerous transportation and other improvements. So many different issues that are being addressed by this budget. This budget is a budget that, when it comes to social welfare issues, meets the people's needs during a pandemic. So while the law enforcement issues are of critical importance, and again, that is not to minimize them, let's also, I would encourage folks to talk to your constituents about the many different programs and investments in this people's budget. I think that's certainly worth talking about. In fact, I'm going to do that right now with a reporter in 30 minutes. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda did not have anything, and I don't have anything. But remember, before we move to receive and file, let's take a 10-minute break, recess. Do not hang up your phones. We have to allow to switch over. We have a special call. Is it a CRA meeting, I believe, which Councilman Goods will take over from there. And that's it. So can I get a motion to receive and file all documents?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to receive and file from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. Any objection? Hearing none. We are taking a break. Do not disconnect from the meeting or hang up your phones. It's 12:08, so let's say just to be even, at 12:20 we'll begin the special call meeting run by Chairman Goods.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Martin Shelby, 2 points. Number one is when people go on this break, if they can mute their devices so you're still being broadcast or still being heard. That's number one. And number two is I would prefer, for the purpose of the record, that City Council's meeting is adjourned.
Okay. All right, so do not hang up your phones. We're gonna adjourn this meeting, but do not disconnect. So we just switch everything over and we continue on. But this Tampa City Council meeting is adjourned. We'll see you back at 12:20. Thank you.